Hey guys, welcome to the close. Couple hours left in the trading session today. We are dealing with negative afternoon here, but hey, we're off the lows, so there's that. Here's a look at where we're at currently. S&P 500, 0.86 to the downside, about 0.5% for the Dow. The NASDAQ, yeah, trying to lead the way here back into positive territory. Some tech stocks showing some strength today, 1.8% for the TSX here in Toronto. Pretty ugly day for crude still. 4.6%, although we got down as far as about 6% on crude. So a nice bounce underway there as well. 0.5% for Bitcoin, 1.5% for Ethereum. That's the board as it stands right now. A few things on the positive side of things. Twitter up here, 5% to the upside. Yeah, could get done even after market tonight. So we'll stand by, see what happens at 4 o'clock. Match here, if you remember. We mentioned this morning, Facebook apparently kicking the tires on Match. What? Seems a little weird, but yeah, Match having a nice day, up 6%. FTNT in the tech sector having a nice day, 5%. All the tech shares pretty much in positive territory though, so nice bounce back there. Few healthcare stocks to look at on the positive side of things still. Energy leading to the downside. Industrials also under pressure here as we head into, as we said, the final couple hours of the day. What an eventful Monday it has been with all things Elon on watch. Yeah, looks like it might get done today. We'll keep an ear out, I guess, to see if we get that announcement even before the market closes tonight, but could come after. I suspect it comes after market tonight, but 54.20 looking like it might get done for Twitter, which is just crazy. If you go back a week ago and have a look at what people were saying. Welcome, everyone. Hope you're doing well this afternoon. Let's get into a few things we were discussing in the pre-market. We'll talk a little bit about some opportunities that were available for you at the open this morning, and we'll see how we can maybe do a little better tomorrow. Let's jump right into a trade. Neil is going to lead the way here with a look at one of his trades.
Thank you very much there, Brennan. And yeah, we're going to look at AMD today. And there were a few breakout longs that I had, and this might not have actually been the one that I traded the best. I actually would say that I made the biggest mistake in this one. That's why I want to go over it here, because it was maybe one of the first. They did catch an upgrade. The story was more about how far down some of these tech names had come. It was a doom and gloom type of Monday morning. Horrible last week in terms of price action for the broad market. Tech was weak as well. And when you had that kind of a pullback, I mean, you look at these wick tops on your 15-minute, and you just see a huge drawback. And that's really just a couple of days worth of price action. I'm only really showing you Thursday and Friday, and then of course today. But it was this bottom that got put in here right around $89. You got this nice little 88 high to about 89 bottom here. It did get violated right at the close. And then in the pre-market, we're starting to try to break out from it. And I think one of the key things to finding a good long, you can find breakouts through highs, but a lot of times when everybody is thinking the worst, you can find some of these nice breakout bottom longs. And that's what I was looking for on AMD here today. And it was pretty simple. Like, we just looked at the bottom end of that range. You had your support there in the 88.90 range. And then you had these tops from Friday afternoon at 89.25. So it's a breakout through 89.25. Now, in theory, you do want to give this one a little bit more room. We'll come back to that a bit later. And when you look at that high from Friday, that was at 91.50. Now, I noted that in my preparation. And we went over these trades. We always do this in the morning. That's why I tune in right away at 8:30 when we go over the plan of action, because I said to myself, 91.50, and if you break that, it should be heading to 95. Yet, however, when you get into a breakout trade, a lot of times it is easy, because I'm intending on taking a shallow profit if it's there, it's easy to get something out too early. I'm staring in the face of 90 and just saying, okay, fine, I'm going to take some profit off because you see it in front of you. And then I do the same thing when it goes another 50 cents. I get caught in that hole, broke out at the quarter, take some out in front of the evens. Then you're in that mindset of, okay, every 50, every 25 cents is going to make sense, ignoring the fact that we had a 91.50 at the top where you eventually made a double top. The other side of the equation here is, while this was happening, you had a market that couldn't decide what it wanted to do. You had the ES, which was incredibly weak and negative. You had the NASDAQ trying to run positive and struggling to break out. So that's the context of the move, and it causes me to take some out too early. On top of this, as we start grinding back down, when we retest this 88.80 area, and we had talked about this price area being significant, that little support, this doesn't actually get broken. However, I end up trailing myself out because when we're making successive lower highs on the way down into that move, this was when the NASDAQ was trying to break out. All of a sudden, tech is trying to break, and AMD now looks relatively weak. So a little bit of over-analysis on my part. I hung on to two longs that both continued to work and said, AMD right now is the most relatively weak out of the three. I'm just going to take it off. But it never violated that support area. And that's the key thing. When you have a plan of action, I don't care if you win on a trade. Ultimately, this is going to end up being a positive trade. But it doesn't matter. If you have a plan of action, which was there's our support area never violated, our target's 91.50, why are we not getting anything out in that range? Why are we not holding a bit more shares into that range? You've got to make sure that you're following your plan of action. There's nothing wrong at times to reacting on the fly to market conditions. I'm always going to note relative strength and weakness, and AMD was definitely relatively weak there. That might have been enough reason to not reload at that price, but it certainly wasn't enough not to give it that extra 30 or 40 cents to hang on to it past that range and then hold it for that 91.50. It's always about getting better. Doesn't matter win or lose. When you analyze a trade, do not analyze your P&L. Don't necessarily only analyze the result. Did you follow your plan as a first and last thing that you should always be asking yourself. Today, I didn't really follow that plan very well. It was laid out and I have to be accountable to it. That's why we do these. Still, it is what it is. Tomorrow is going to be another day, and we just want to make sure we're always executing our plan as best as we can.
AMD, the standout in the semiconductor group today. We were mentioning in the pre-market, if you joined us this morning, that there was a couple of negative notes out on the semiconductor group in general, but an upgrade then, price target increase on AMD specifically, which had it noticeably strong heading towards the open. That's a link to the watch list, guys. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you grab that. Every day, absolutely free to you. A couple of things right out of the gate here to talk about. Twitter, first of all, this just came out. The company saying they have not received any acquisition offers from companies or private equity firms outside of or as they near a deal with Elon Musk. So just confirming that there's no other offer and they're not expecting one to be, which, as we said earlier, could make this a done deal a little bit sooner than later anyways. By the end of the day, they're saying. Kohl's, KSS up significantly this afternoon. JCPenney apparently making a bid, $8.6 billion. I also saw Simon Property also could be interested with a bid on Kohl's. So nice looking chart here. We're trying to get back to day highs, in fact, for KSS, up around $60. But number of, I guess, deal-making headlines to deal with this afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see that with Simon Property. I mean, off the top of my head, I have zero clue. Welcome everybody. I have zero clue how many, what the lease situation would be. Like, how many properties, Simon Property, do they have, how many lease deals? Like, how big would their relationship be with them? But it would make sense. Like, if you're like a major retail space holder like Simon, you probably have a ton of deals out there. So it makes a lot of sense to me. I know there was some talk of that. I feel with multiple rumors with Kohl's, and we'll definitely be getting into that. I want to kind of start because you mentioned Twitter there, and let's be honest, we're going to go back and forth. It's more of a scalp trade today on Twitter. I think that's just the way that it's gone, and I think that's going to continue. It did try to break out. When the news dropped that it could be after market, there was a big volume spike at 12:30. There was a 52 break. It could not get past the quarter mark. Then there was this trade down here. I want to explain what happened when the stock broke 51.50. There was a 150,000 share size seller on IEX that just stuck on the offer and drove the stock down all the way to about 15.25. It then, there was a short that you could ride. I was in it a little bit late. And then once that order got filled, there was an obvious long right around that same 25 to 30 range that kind of stalled. I got out in front of 51.80, but a scalp trade. And then it stalled out right back at that 52 area. So you've got a range-bound trade happening in Twitter. I think off of VWAP, 51 and a quarter, running into resistance around 52. If a deal were to be announced, keep in mind, it's 54.20 in cash. There is no possible higher bid here. There's a cap to the upside with that kind of an offer, and you have the time value of money. Who knows how long the deal is going to close? I would think there's two factors, and I'm shouting out Dominic for pointing this one out because one of them I kind of figured safe haven type of event where if the market's going to go down in your estimation and the market's weak, then you can stick into Twitter. If you get 51 or 51.5 or any of these prices, suddenly 54.20, even if it takes a year to close and you think the market's heading down, that's not a bad return beating the overall market, although inflation's going to kill you. But the other aspect of this is the retail side. And Dominic's right. Like, there's a lot of retail traders involved that are bullish on Twitter here. And so it might be irrationally strong as well. So I don't think there's a tremendous amount of upside past, say, 53 to 53.5, because it gets a little tricky getting too close to the price there when there's no reason it should trade above. But there's still some room for this to be a long side trade. I just think for the day trade, it's a scalp city. I don't see us buying 51s here and thinking that the whole possibility of an aftermarket announcement is going to get you to 54 at the close.
Yeah, that's the thing with Twitter, right? Even if you get that announcement, where does it go? Like, how much upside do you have? $3 before you hit this magic number here, 54.20. Let's just say, for entertainment's sake, they deal something higher, $55 even instead of 54.20. Musk gives up his special number and goes up a little bit higher just to get the board to agree. Even then, at 51.36 right now, market's been working with 52. Upside is $3 or so. And that's also under the assumption that this is locked in. You know, it's not always locked in. So you're looking to play for $3 to $4 to the upside, but wide open to the downside in the event something were to come out. And also, I'm always going to look at the risk aspect of something like this. If we were trading much lower, it makes sense to take this shot on Twitter, especially with this kind of news. Like, hey, we have an upside potential, we have a decent upside potential, and we can actually maybe get, you know, $10 on this trade or something like that. But now at 51 into 52, the day hasn't even closed yet. So if people do believe that this deal is, for the most part, done and about to be announced, then who's to say that we don't get a massive buy-side imbalance at the end of the day that runs it fairly high with the expectation that it actually ends up in that 54.20 area. So that's my only issue, is that like the upside is so limited for you to take a shot. Scalpers, completely different arena, right? What that type of trade is, you're in, you're out. If you want to play around number breaks, if you want to see if you can carry momentum to the upside and take it as far as you can, then dump it for a quick turnaround, that's a different story. If you're playing the scalp game, I think this is what Twitter is right now. It's more geared towards scalping than it is for some sort of a position setup towards a buy-side move. But I'd be careful on Twitter if you are positioning in. If you're scalping, hey man, go with the flow, right? You saw that flow right north of 52 into that 27 area, and then quick drop, quick bounce. That's where scalpers are going to be living and making their money.
All right, I saw a lot of people talking both on Twitter and online in general this afternoon about DWAC. So let's maybe visit DWAC here, guys. Digital World Acquisition Corporation down another 16% today after a pretty ugly end to last week. I mean, there was a couple of reports out at the end of last week suggesting that this is never going to get through regulatory approval. That aside, what does this Elon Twitter deal mean for Truth Social in general going forward here? Because, I mean, if we simply look at price action, it would suggest maybe not too positive anyways. Certainly not.
And let's be real. If the number, like, what's the first thing that's going to happen? We were actually talking about this earlier during lunchtime, like amongst ourselves. Like, what's the first thing that'll happen if Twitter goes public? Is Donald Trump probably going to get right back on Twitter? Like, I think you'll probably have that happen. And if the whole notion behind Truth Social was to create something where the focus on free speech and all that, well, that's what Elon wants to do with something that's already bigger. And he looks at changing the company, which a lot of people believe in. It definitely makes this lower hanging fruit. And there's a couple of things that are certain in life. One is that pineapple does not belong on pizza, regardless of what my mug. And thank you for the gift. One of our viewers actually gave me this mug, so I will use it despite the fact that's not true. The other thing that's also true is always go after the lower hanging fruit when trading. We just talked about all the reasons why Twitter kind of makes a little bit more sense as a scalp trade and might not give you the upside. Well, if you just looked at the weakness in DWAC this morning, then, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you, but you break out of these bottoms here at about like 37.5, 38 on the daily chart, simply saying, okay, well, Twitter goes private, that's bad for DWAC. Well, that short's way better than any long that Twitter was going to give you. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, I look at this, and I'm frankly embarrassed that I wasn't paying for shorts and shorting the stock. Like, it was a clean $3. It's the lower hanging fruit. Sometimes when you make the sympathy play, it sets up better. There's a lower barrier of resistance there, and I get it. There's people that have opinions about it. I'm just going to talk about the trade for you there, and it was almost perfect. I don't see what we can do with it just yet. There might be some momentum for this. If there was an announcement that made this official, there could be some more potential downside for DWAC, but it's already down 17%. The lesson here is, I should have seen this one coming a mile away, and I was infatuated with the notion of trading Twitter. Like, I had 5 or 6 things this morning. Twitter was, of course, one of them, but it should have been DWAC instead. And, oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. You guys can come to my screen. I'm just saying it's, I was just looking at pineapple pizza, Hawaiian pizza. Neil's like pineapple doesn't belong on pizza, but yet he's drinking from a pineapple pizza mug. I mean, come on, it makes it way too easy. Come on, Neil, you just got to try it one time.
No. First of all, I've had it before.
And?
It's horrible.
How?
I love pineapple and I love pizza, but it's not a real pizza. It's just wrong, and it's wrong in every single way. And again, I say this every single time. If you're just joining the show now, you'll know that I'm not like Italian or anything, but an Italian will tell you that it's not true. It's not true.
I mean, Sean's Italian. He liked it, so.
But he knows the truth. Like, he'll say, I know he'll eat it, but Sean knows what's up. Like, Sean knows that it's not really. Okay, fine. You go to Italy, and I know
I wouldn't do that in Italy. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
You would not go to Italy and order pineapple
purists.
pizza.
Let them be purists, but that's fine.
Story.
Everyone has their preference. I'm just saying pineapple pizza is a thing. But when it comes to DWAC, DWAC is also a thing. And DWAC is actually breaking through the bottom to the downside here as he shuffles because he feels.
You just admitted I'm right.
What did I didn't admit anything. You said pineapple pizza is not good. That's not what I said. I said pineapple pizza purists are not going to be happy about it, but it is the delicious pie. Anyways, 36 is going to be the multi-day support level going back into late November. So the fact that we actually finally broke it, we had a chance to bounce off of it. And DWAC, if you take out the last support level, what do you have? Think about it. We spent all the time down at like $9.90, $10. Is it $10? Yeah, about $10 or so until we got 2 days that took us from $10 all the way up to, what is this insane number, 170 something. And then that's it. We just kind of messed around, wide range, and then we finally took out the last support level. So who's to say this doesn't go to $10 once this deal is announced, right? Keep in mind, if Twitter's going to, let's just say the deal is announced. If Twitter takes off to 54.20 or 55 or whatever the number is, why is DWAC even there as competition anymore? Because that opens the door. If Elon Musk says that Twitter's too controlled and he's just trying to free up access, then what is DWAC going to bring to the table? And I think that's what the charts are showing you. It's going to be an issue. Now, there could still be, hurdles to get past for Twitter, which could allow DWAC to still bounce back up. But at the same time, charting outright just shows you that 36 break opens the downside wide open down to that 10 even level. So I keep an eye on this one because if you can't get a handle on Twitter because it's at its buyout price, let's just say, DWAC now opens the door for a lot more trading, right? A lot more active trading. So that's what the opportunity is. Once you lose Twitter, you may be able to trade DWAC more actively. That's what we're going to look forward to going forward.
All right, we heard about AMD off the bat there from Neil, but chip stocks in general, guys, we were concerned with, I guess, to say the least, in the pre-market on a couple of negative notes from analysts suggesting prices could come down rapidly as more and more supply comes into the market, suggesting that demand may or may not be there once everything is said and done. So, I mean, we were negative to start things off outside of AMD, who caught a price target upgrade on its own. But, I mean, overall, kind of a flat day for semiconductor stocks, albeit a little bit constructive given the market weakness.
Yeah, I won't go over AMD again because we just talked about it, but there was something else that I mentioned this morning when we were talking about these, that I liked AMD trade over NVIDIA. And the NVIDIA trade, and again, it's just like, it's kind of annoying to have to sort of say this and didn't make the trade, but there was that double bottom at 190. If you look at the daily chart, it's like, okay, well, there's your support going all the way back to last year, that 190 level on NVIDIA on the daily chart. And you got essentially a wick right down there in the pre-market. And then you retested that pretty much at the open, and it's not huge. It's about like $4 or $5 up, like 91 to 95. It did get as high as 98. So when you zoom in, it's not a bad trade. It is certainly a bit cleaner looking to buy the dip. than the AMD was, and you're still flat on the session, but that's the trade that was there for you. In this case, it wasn't the breakout. It was off that level in the daily at 190, and so far it's held. It's just, as we were saying, like the market hasn't made a decision today. It hasn't felt like, and stocks like this are the reason why. Like it got off the bottom. I know, yeah, it's
confused.
It's like a hybrid.
It's a hybrid. It's a bear bull confused.
So none of these moves really follow through. Like, yeah, great, you'd be in the money. You'd still be in the trade. If I had taken the NVIDIA instead of AMD, I'd still be sitting here waiting for this to maybe, get through some of those levels from Friday. It never even took out the lower high from Friday. So NVIDIA caught the downgrade. They're still positive on the session, but without the backup of the market here, there's not much you can do about it there, guys. So. 190 is a good support level till it's not on NVIDIA. AMD still has that 88 level as well.
For longs, though, I would consider, if you're going chips, I'd take a look at Marvell. Marvell's holding up well, up 2% on the day. If we can actually close strong and close above Friday's high, which is 60.5. Now, we breached it briefly earlier, but now we're kind of come back underneath. If we can get back another dollar to the upside, this could easily be a false break through that. What day is this? March the 14th, low, snap back up, and then we take a look to the upside. It does look like Marvell, of all the names, is actually holding up well. If we were to take a look, I actually don't even know what NVIDIA is up on the day here. Up, yeah, for the most part, it's flat. Also, the chart, it doesn't lend itself to a long, right? So if we're going for chip names, I'm going to be looking at the ones that are doing really well in this kind of market. Although NASDAQ is up 0.5% and S&P is now only down 0.33%, which name actually looks pretty good for a snapback? Marvell would be my choice. If Micron could actually get back above 71, that could be an option as well. False break through the bottom there. But all the other names, they're kind of, they're struggling a little bit here. Even with AMD up 1.5%, supposedly. Is it actually up 1.5%? Yeah, it is. It's showing, my chart is showing 1.5% to the upside, but I mean, this is what the chart looks like, though. It looks like this. I mean, that's not much of a move. For the most part, we opened right here at 9:30, and we're 40 cents from the opening high. So a lot of overnight movement, I guess, to say the least, and the official closing price is down here, right? So that's why you're seeing it up 1.5%, but that chart looks very different from Micron and Marvell. I think those two would be a better choice if you're trying to play relative strength in the chips.
Some of the EV stocks have been a little bit quiet today. Interesting note I saw on Lucid, guys. I was just trying to find it again here. Obviously, I can't now, but Lucid said to be looking at maybe expanding into China and the Chinese market in general. Everybody is well aware of how competitive that space is and how also large that space is, with NIO, with XPeng, with Li Auto, all kind of leading the way in China. But an interesting move from Lucid when they're still kind of, I guess, trying to get established in North America at this point, to already be looking at China as well.
You know what? It actually reminds me of a line the Emperor said, and I won't shout out which movie, but I am talking about Star Wars. He's like, it's too aggressive. It's like, really now? Like, it's so high. Like you said, Brennan, it's so competitive in China that most people don't even realize, like the Neo lovers don't realize just how much they're kind of getting their clock cleaned by BYD, Tesla, and even XPeng. We mention this all the time, Li Auto as well. For Lucid to maybe make this move, like I don't necessarily see it. Clearly, the market doesn't really care too much about that. It does have some momentum coming in here today. It does feel overly aggressive, but at the same time, you're not going to succeed in this space because there's so much competition out there if you aren't prepared to win either in a very special niche or just making sure that you're doing it across the globe. I just think this is going to be tough sledding for them in general. Stock doesn't get terribly interesting until we get back closer to this $20 level. I think from there it would have some room to run. It hasn't been a bad long here today, but this is kind of what I mean. If you look at the previous lows that just got broken through, like Thursday and Friday of last week, we're just kind of getting back into those levels. Like, this hasn't broken the trend at all. There's stronger moves being made today on a bounce back Monday after last week's negativity. I don't see Lucid as participating as much on that news. I wanted to quickly point out that that RBDX from this morning. Shout out to Brendan for bringing this one to us. They reduced their board members last week and have a 10 million float. Big time mover, RBDX. And it just took out, of course, it's like, is it RDBX? Well, oh yeah, RDBX. My apologies, RDBX. It just did take out the highs, and it's got room to $5 on the daily chart if it can sustain this break. I missed the 4 break just now, like when it took out this 4 to 410 area. A dip buy in front of that might make some sense here, but it's room to $5 easily on RDBX.
Going back to Lucid, Lucid, you know, technically, I'm always going to speak from the technical perspective, just because, you know, that's how I trade with charts, right? For the most part, this looks like it has a chance to bounce here around this 19. Low risk shot could be 18. If you go back to September of 2021, there seems to be some action around here. You know, this is between 20 to 18. Decent amount of buy side action back then. Now we're coming back in. We did a bounce back in March here around the March low for the market as well, around that 21 to 20 area. Now we're kind of getting through it. Again, attempting to bounce one more time, but I think we can bounce, but still this could be in a decent downtrend. I think once you clear that 23 to the upside, that actually activates the long, the actual long, because it then confirms what you would have seen earlier, that buy side action in front of 20, and then a break underneath, holding that 18 level, and then bounce back one more time north of that 21 to 22 area that we had back in March. So as long as Lucid can break this downtrend within this current zone, I think there's a chance that Lucid actually has a chance to get back into the 30s. But for the time being, it is the downtrend. Yes, it's having a 1.5% type of day, with the market actually bouncing back up now, or breaking out now north of 50. It is having a decent day to the upside, but again, most names are. Like, we remember, it was a rough start for a lot of tech names, and S&P was down over 1%. And then now we're seeing Google's up almost 2%. And then I'm looking over, and we've got Roku up 4, we got Square up 4.4, Uber's up 4.6. So there are names that are doing extremely well in this market environment right now, regardless of how we started the day. And Lucid, you know, if we're that strong, we should be actually up a lot more than we are right now. So I think Lucid needs to break that 23 to break this downtrend.
All right, monster earnings to come this week, as we said. Unfortunately, there wasn't much to deal with today outside of Coca-Cola. Positive report for KO, though, which went red to green early on this morning on the actual news itself. But, I mean, if you missed this initial move to 67, guys, not much to do here today for Coke off earnings.
Yeah, it was disappointing because it was a good report for them, and you know, sometimes that's not what it's about. It's, you know, it's where it's come from, and in a weak market, I think there was a lot of profit taking, especially when it got back up to last week's high at 67. I did like 65 support. I took it when it came back to that price. It was one spike to 66. It gave 50 cents, and then it took it away. And I haven't really traded it since. I know we get Pepsi. Crap. And I'm actually not even sure if it's tonight or tomorrow morning. It might be tomorrow.
It's tonight.
Is it after market?
It was on that list that we did earlier.
Well, I know it's before tomorrow's trade, but it might be in the morning.
Yeah, I have no clue.
Either way, we get Pepsi before they open, whether it's tonight or tomorrow morning. We're going to get them, but it's a very different company. I think everybody understands that. I tend to think it'll be tough sledding for Pepsi to have a good reaction, just given what happened to Coke today and the relative weakness that I think it showed. But either way, it's still green on the session. I don't know if I see a trade. I still like the support down here, 64, 65, because we have bounced off that level. So there's a chance that we could trade off of this tomorrow and just sort of go right back to it. Still a positive report. If the market makes a bottom from here, there's a lot to like about that 65 level. It just didn't work at 9:30. That's pretty much it.
I mean, Coke was one of my pre-market bids that I got filled on that long. I was working with on the way down here from that 67. We were along 66.40 something, I believe, or maybe just above 50, and didn't work out. I mean, my read was we start up here, let's bounce off these 66 half area. If we take the 65s, that kind of voids the entire zone here that we've had for the last few days here. So the best chance was market bounces, Coke bounces strong after having a decent run to the start. And as you can see, yeah, since I'm already on the topic, I might as well talk about it. Coke long, Coke exit, Coke bounce. What? Frustrating stock of the day is also Coke. That was my read on Coke, and that did not work out clearly. I got in a few cents from the bottom as it bounces all the way back up north into 65.60 now. So taking a hit, not a fun time. But Coke, the one read that I had on Coke is now actually getting a lot messier because, again, 65 break should have, that would be my concern with this is the angle of this trend here. If you want to draw trend lines, well, yeah, if you draw it like that, it's perfect. But at the same time, trend lines are subjective. So the angle of movement to the upside is actually very strong. So for me, breaking 65 opens the door to the downside. Clearly, Coke had other ideas and decided to bounce off of that low and back to the upside. This bounce, if we close like this is really, really messy. This is very messy from Coke's chart because it tells you that, hey, although the range was wide, we still have a chance to keep going up, even though the day's negative. So I keep an eye on Coke. It has a trade. I'm personally gonna walk away from it just because of how wide the range is and the fact that we're not willing to stay below 65 for the most part. So I'm gonna back off from Coke, take the hit, and we'll regroup and come back to it another time. But Veru, before I let you guys go, Veru is now not too far away from that 14 level area. I remember 14, what is the high on Veru actually? 14 something, I think. 14.
Yeah.
14 is the high on Veru, and we're not that far away from taking a shot at it one more time.
Oh, speaking of that, Veru, before we move on here, I had a line for Veru because I finally watched Encanto with my daughter because Sean's like, how have you not seen that you have a kid, how have you not seen Encanto? Finally watched, I was going to be like, we don't talk about Veru, and I'm not going to sing it for you because my voice is just gone, and it sucks anyway, so I wouldn't do that to you guys. But yeah, there's no ignoring the stock, and you mentioned that 14.14. I got to stop at that price because Arun is long at 11.30. Not the time, that's the price. That's pretty sick. I'm short off this high of the day. I have a 79 short. I did trade this into VWAP the first time and should have taken it out. I had the target down at about 12 and a quarter. And then I just got back into it when it came back and retested that 14, and it's right back at that high. If it takes out the top, this stock has room to 15 to go, so there's no getting stubborn about it. But we're going to have to talk about Veru today because it just doesn't seem to want to go away. The good catalyst, it's a small float. This one can definitely start to go on us here. And, oh, yeah. Yeah, you finally...
He's growing
Why
a little
isn't
bit.
it all the way?
Because he's not ready yet.
Okay, so here's my question to you. And again, I love having Arun on here because to me, and I'm going to pull up the ES here.
Yeah.
Like when the ES finally breaks out from that double top in the morning, right? Like the NASDAQ had already shown you all the strength that you needed, and the NASDAQ just tested the high again, by the way. The ES finally breaks out. Like what would it take? Like, when are we bullish on the day? Like, I don't get it. Like, what more do we need, man? What do we need?
What do we need? We need to get past this guy right here, this red line here, 42.80. The reason I say this is because the pre-market highs, although, sure, we were looking at 50 earlier, but the pre-market high is sitting right there. Is Veru going? Yeah, Veru's taking the highs. Pre-market high sits around 67, right? We're a few points away from the pre-market high. I'm going to mark that up to 70 even, and then given where we stalled out on Friday is just above 70. So that's why I'm saying 80 needs to clear for us to actually get going to the upside. Although we've spent a lot of time through the bottom picking up bids and just being all over the place. That's why this guy was like, half bull, half bear, and then sometimes he was a bull and then had to swap back to being a bear. Now we're actually getting into territory where this could actually take a shot through the top. But again, I'm going to respect the volume. The volume is there from Friday. Friday's close shows you where the volume is going to be, and the volume is there around that 65 to 70-ish. Move it up a little bit further, and that's why I'm saying 80. So that's why I haven't fully committed to the buy side just yet, but there's a chance that we do get going, especially as we come into the final 90 minutes here. So market has a chance to accelerate. We've been building a decent buy side support all day, and NASDAQ has been holding up well, and finally NASDAQ is now approaching some levels where we could actually get going to the upside because it's up 0.66 at this point. The only three names that are negative in the top, waiting list, Apple still down 0.5%, and AVGO, Broadcom, down 0.86%. Everything else, positive now. Wasn't the case earlier today, but now we're getting positive action. Actually, Tesla's flirting with 0 too, so that's an option as well.
And I just want to remind us, we were talking about Microsoft. Microsoft taking out the high of the day, one of the stronger big tech names, breaking through this 270. I don't know if we're going to go back to Brennan, but Veru did break out. I reversed into a long trade. You'll see that. But I also got that RDBX. I mentioned going long in front of that 4 even. I did scalp some out in front of 450 there and then reloaded it at 420. So I'd have a 25 average price that I do want to give to 4. I think if it gets to VWAP, I'd rather just play off the support levels and a consolidation down there as opposed to try to hold along. The upside's to $5 anyway, so I think having a relatively reasonable stop about 25, 30 cents does make some sense, and then try to scalp it up. This is a harsh enough reversal after essentially wicking up to that high again and then hard reverse. Like it gives a fill and then runs away from it. That's not a great look, so I don't want to be averaging into the death on RDBX.
Just quickly, guys, wanted to update a couple of things, actually. Gap, GPS, some of the retail stocks a little bit strong today. This is one of them. GPS up 4.5%. There were some positive mentions on CNBC on that. Also, this move, pretty impressive, into the end of the pit session today for, this is crude oil, if you're wondering. Monster rip there from 97 up to almost 99. $2 straight to the upside for crude oil at the end of the day there for crude at 230. But yeah, some retail stocks having a pretty good day.
Yeah, I'm not even surprised with this rally on crude. Crude always has done crazy things in the final few minutes. For anyone who don't understand how crude essentially works, is as soon as you hit 2:30 p.m., it just goes. What do you call it? Digital. It trades on Globex, right? So it has Globex hours, but for the most part, most volume dries up after 2:30 Eastern time. So right as you get to 2:30. After 2 o'clock, you get into that 2:30 session, right towards the end of it, as I noticed in the corner of my screen, Veru taking off now to the upside, 1436. So crude always does something like this. This is the 5-minute chart. This is in the final 10 minutes. We went from 97.5 all the way up to 98.80. So huge rally, but that's also not surprising. Anytime crude has a big move, you're going to see this kind of action right around that 220 to 230 area, 230 time frame. So 10-minute window, and you're going to get a lot of volatility. And if you guys want to know what it looks like, this is, for the most part, volume's dried up now. So now it's a little thin right here. This is what you've got on the bids and offers. But at the same time, it gets very volatile. So we've had it in the past where I've been in position, and we've gotten like $1, $2 runners right in the last few minutes there. But again, it's still open for the most part. If you want to trade it, you still can trade it. And going back to what we were talking about in terms of earnings, Pepsi is actually tomorrow morning. Pepsi and UPS are tomorrow morning. And GE is also tomorrow morning. But I think that's not what we care about. What do we care about? Microsoft at the close tomorrow. Visa as well. So Microsoft and Visa, and the TXN, a decent, it's a decent participant in the NASDAQ as well. It's got some weight, not as much weight as the other names, like Cisco being the last of the big ones. But it's there. TXN definitely a name to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Like Microsoft, we did just mention it's showing its strength there. The ES pulling back just a tiny bit. It's not green just yet, but it feels like we're going to get there. As I mentioned, Veru was a reverse. It wasn't just getting out of the short at the high of the day, which I thought I said, but I might not have said it. Either way, try to get to 14.50, and I'll probably take some off the next time it tries to go there through that price. 15 makes some sense. On the daily chart, you've got room. You've definitely got room when you pull up the daily. I think it's the 15 that I liked, 15-minute chart that is, and that's why you sort of see this 15 level standing out there. It's not a monster thing. Like if it got to that level and broke through, I wouldn't be terribly surprised. That's not a level I would blindly just short in front, but I'd probably look for a turn at that price. Just remember, Veru we've seen that just run over shorts before, and this is a nice consolidation area that it made off of 13 even anyway. So it's set up for a decent chance to be a runner. It's all about the flow with these names, guys. You can't ignore that. And then Kang, this is one from the morning. Kang pretty much sat in it all day long, and it's looking like it wants to go as well. We had that short, it got down to that 75, we reloaded in front of 3 and took the 10-cent hit. And then of course it starts to break out, but it's at that 3/4 mark that it's having some trouble and the volume's really dying down. Like, can't really see there, so I'll just pull up. Yeah, like the volume really, really weak on this move to the upside. Like it's not a huge volume spike since it broke out, and so it's really starting to taper off here. Going to need more volume on CANG if it's really going to start to run. And PayPal from this morning has to take out 88. There's room to 90, and as long as the market wants to continue strength, I'm holding PayPal because 86 has been a great price the whole day. And if we get through this top, this one should be headed to $90. Hasn't been that rapid a mover, but I don't see a reason to be out of it.
You got PayPal at 86? Damn, that's
just sitting in it all day long, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, well, if you didn't get it this morning, you've got it down here, priced all the way right here. I mean, if it's consolidating and it goes for a breakout, shot towards the highs, if those 88s open up, man, PayPal is going to be really good, especially going into this area from Friday morning here. It looks like north of 88 into about 88.50, 89. That's going to bring a lot of activity as well. So PayPal, if you're positioned this low, that's a stellar price. So definitely one to watch there because of the way it's consolidating. Futures backing off a little bit. This is why this guy's not a full bull just yet, because we've still got some volume to get through on the futures here, and they need to clear this. Again, sometimes you got to pay attention to volume from previous day. Well, most of the time you've got to pay attention to volume from previous days, and Friday brought you a lot of volume in this area. So could it turn? Yeah, absolutely. But again, let's just not forget, the strength is there. You're getting tech strength across the board. If Tesla can get back to being flat, then there's a good chance. Tesla actually bounced well, it seems like, because I think earlier today we were talking about, around this 965. Remember, we were talking about 965, where I was saying 970 through 965 in the pre-market. 970 was a level to watch. And then coming into the open, we were sitting around 975. If we're going to bounce, we got to bounce here, right? And we got that nice little bounce all the way back to 1,000. Doesn't mean we're out of the woods, because if you take a look at the daily on Tesla, this is what you end up getting. I don't know how strong of a long that is as an indicator, but definitely there's a bounce. But let's see if the market can hold up today's rally. As long as today's rally is not one of those dead cat bounces, where although there's been a decent amount of volume, but this is a very weak bounce, right? Every buy move has been sold, and we're finally catching a bid. Maybe you get an accelerated move to the upside, but keep in mind, we've got big tech earnings. That's all it takes. I was telling Neil earlier this. All we need is a couple big movers. Maybe Microsoft,
Hopefully, Mike.
maybe Apple, and that's 1 and 2. That's the 1-2 punch you need, because those two guys control 20%, over 20% of the NASDAQ. So as long as you get those two stellar numbers, you're probably going to get some upside pressure.
Well, Twitter
on
just
the rest of
halted.
them. There you
That's
go.
going to be the deal announced. Oh, why? Oh, man.
All right.
Yeah, Twitter just halted. It's not volatility because it hasn't gone anywhere, right? So there's only one thing it can be, ladies and gentlemen, and it's got to be that the deal is going to be announced. If it's not, it's a halted news pending. There's only one thing. It's got to be them announcing the deal, Brennan.
I'll just make it official, guys. It's news pending. if you were wondering, there it is. So that may, we do have, an hour and change left here. So I was going to say that may or may not reopen, but news pending, guys.
Before, I got caught. What was it? Now all of a sudden my memory stinks post vid. What the heck was it that I got caught in? It was the airline that I got caught in. I was trading Save. I was trading Southwest when they had the buyout rumor as well.
Love?
And they opened it back up after the first news came out, traded it, and then 5 minutes later they halted it, news pending, when the rumor was already out there. And it's like why did it open in the first place then, right? So I would kind of think that should be what happens here. That being said, everybody, I think we know the details. If it's 54.20 and that's the offer, then I think they could probably reasonably open this one up before the close. But at this point, who knows when it's news pending? It could open tomorrow. It could open in 20 minutes. It could open at 4 o'clock. It could open at 5. We don't really know. If you are in the stock right now and you're short, I'd be more afraid of being short than I would the long, because if you're long, if they announce the deal, it probably has a chance to trade above 52 at this point. So, we'll keep our ear to the ground for this, for everybody. But I couldn't even guess at when I think this thing is going to open up. It's just not going to be possible. I did want to jump back to this NKTX, because this is another one from this morning that's starting to go. Here it is. Now, it's made several runs at the high, opened up long the stock, and then played a short that lost, and tried a couple of longs that didn't work out. And here we go, finally getting through this high of the day. But look, every time it's broken the top, it is completely and utterly rejected the 17 break. This is the strongest move it's put in past 17 so far. But if it fails again at 18, I look at this and say to myself, okay, well, I'll probably be playing it to the short side, because the volume on these breaks is much lower than what it was doing at the open. So these are lower volume breaks, and every time it's failed this high and pulled back into VWAP. So risk to reward tells me I'd rather play for a failure at 18 if the volume's not going to be there. But NKTX certainly going to be on our radars going into this close, because it's a mover, and you got to trade what's moving here today. Veru's moving, NKTX is certainly moving. The market's trying to go, but I'm just hanging on to the PayPal long because it's working, and having a good look at Microsoft, because if it gets through that 28 and starts churning above it, that's on the verge of a breakout, which could carry the market.
Microsoft was is still my biggest winner from earlier this morning. We ended up getting out. We obviously didn't hold on to it the entire time, but we had a nice little play here, 275 on the long here, getting out nice 278, just a shade underneath 278 on the first exit, and then breaking 276. It went all the way back down to 273. I kind of gave up on it because the market wasn't responding in a strong way. I wasn't going to chase after. Microsoft was playing relative strength. Wasn't going to go after this potential secondary bid as well, but hey, it has picked up some steam. Market has turned around. It's a different situation this time around. And now, if you were to pull the daily on Microsoft, it looks stellar, actually. It looks stellar for maybe not today, but look at this. If you can close this strong and stay above at least this low here from back in mid-March here, around 276, if you can hold that well, why can't we go back up to 280 and change, right? Mid 280s, even 290 is a possibility on Microsoft because of the way it's trading down here. Is that right? As long as the market can hold up well tomorrow, we've got earnings coming out fairly soon as well, so probably setting up for earnings. But I'm just saying, before we even get to earnings, can we actually get a move on Microsoft that bounces off the support? That's something to keep an eye on because there could be a possibility where you get that chance. Veru is now back underneath 14. I'm going to give it a chance. There's still.
That'll hold 50.
If we're still going to bounce off this support level, remember we took 14 twice now and we're failing, but at the same time, there's a bunch of volume here around this 1380 to 1350, I guess, area. As long as that can hold up well, Veru's got a chance. If it doesn't, if we crack that level, I'm done. At that point, I don't need to see 14 broken multiple times. I don't need to hold on to it. I've got $2.45 in the money. We've cashed them on the way up. Now it's a matter of defending as much as we possibly can on the way down, right? So if we were to crack that level, I'm done. Call it a day. I'll probably go flat unless I can find a read on the futures, which right now is nothing, right? Because we got the market now bouncing one more time to the upside as it gets going back towards these 65s, and it seems like intraday highs are coming back in play here. But again, 80's got to go for this guy to turn into a full bull. Brendan.
There goes Microsoft.
Two things. Some of the streamers just popping up, online streaming. If you remember last week, we were talking about Netflix, and then the rest of them all got hit as well. Warner Brothers, if you remember, WBD, which was a spinoff from AT&T, back to the upside here. We just went green and then some, 3% now back to day highs as well, after that CNN Plus debacle back on Friday.
By the way, Microsoft here, I'm actually trying to get Microsoft as it breaks that 278.50. I was just on the bid, on the break of that level and trying to get involved in this as the market is, the ES just turned green. So I want to make sure we're getting involved in that one if we can. That NKTX, I did get into it. It just put a wick high through 18. So it broke, failed I don't know what that was behind me. Failed 1850, and just came right back in. So I see a wick off like that. I'm gonna jump right back into some more shares. If we take out that high from now, then you know it's gonna be gangbusters. If it gets through the new high, I'm thinking 20 bucks. Like it's probably headed to $20 at that point, but it keeps on putting these wick highs. And every time it does that, I want to make sure I'm going to the short side of the trade because I fought that long every single way after the pre-market long. So I like the short side of the trade until we get there. Never picked up that Microsoft. I'm going to regret that one. That was a stock looking good for that 278 break. If the market just keeps on making fresh highs here and the NASDAQ gets to 1.5%, 2%, missing Softy is going to be a bad beat.
Yeah, you can't miss Softy, or you can't miss Microsoft. And the other big one you can't miss in this kind of market if you get relative strength, well, I guess it's weakness today, but still, Apple. Apple's the other one. Remember, Apple's the top dog in the NASDAQ index. So once you get Apple going as well, you're going to get a decent move to the upside. But again, Apple's been hesitant. The chart hasn't been the best chart to work with exactly, because even if it bounces now, where are we going to go with Apple? Are we just going to put a isolation bottom here and just bounce a few points? I mean, possibility, but again, Microsoft chart looks much better because it's around support areas. That's why I go for Microsoft. But at the same time, as long as Apple can get going, we're sitting 30 cents from the 162 level. If we can get going on Apple as well, this market will accelerate. Right now, we're looking at 42.70, another 10 points, and this guy goes into a full bull. I think we should grow this guy a little bit here. He can lose his bare legs, but he'll keep one bare leg. but there he is now. He's a little bit more of a bull now, getting bigger and bigger as this market wants to take to the upside. 42.70.
I think we can call it bull. Like,
I mean, 42.80, I think clearance, but it definitely buy-side strength right now as the market is doing, I guess, a sweep to the upside here. Working highs, good buy-side strength, 15-point run in the last 5 minutes, and here we go, upside we go.
Yeah, the market just swept the leg of the shorts, right? Haha, see, I just pulled a reference on, if you guys don't get that reference, because there's even like a new Karate Kid that I haven't seen. That's pretty bad, I should watch that. Apparently it's really, really good on Netflix, but sweep the leg, one of the greater lines out there. Yeah, I might have missed out on this break on Microsoft, but the strength is certainly going to be there. Like I said, PayPal is going to be a hold on to that trade for sure. NKTX starting to fail a little bit. Veru, I think it has a chance. It just gave a reload off of this 1380 level, so as long as we're above 1350, we can get back to those highs. I still think 15 is the ultimate target for Veru. Brendan?
We were making the possible negative case, guys, for DWAC off the start there, but just popped back to the upside, in fact, along with Twitter halting. So DWAC getting a little bit of volume here coming in.
DWAC to the upside, that is not the relationship move that I thought would have happened.
I don't understand that. Why would I?
Yeah, I don't understand that move either, but okay. Let me, yeah, bear with me as I try to process how that works,
okay,
but okay.
So the only thing that would make sense to me in this particular case, okay, it's been selling off the entire time. That'd be like a sell the news kind of thing. Like the deal's finally going to be announced, so the worst has already happened for DWAC, and it would be a buyback. I don't know. Brendan?
We'll make it official here, guys. Elon Musk now owns Twitter, if anyone was wondering what that was. So he's going to provide at least $21 billion in the deal of his own money. Total number here, $44 billion. So the news just coming out. But yeah, Elon just bought Twitter.
Like if you're, let's just say, if you trade leverage buyouts, which I do on the side, that'll be an exciting one. There's absolutely no question about it, but that feels like a fade on DWAC. I was trying to reason something for a long on DWAC there. I don't get it. So if DWAC breaks 37, I lose. That's basically what it comes down to. But yeah, it's just after missing out on today, I don't see how this gets official and you're trading $3 off the low. So you just spike it, it goes, and now it's squeezing. Give me a break. Yeah, it's squeezing up. There's no offer on. There's no offer on the stock. Oh goodness, thank God I didn't average into this. That would have been disgusting. There's no offer at this point. It just went to 40. Oh my goodness. If anything, this stock makes no sense. I have to get more. That makes 0 sense.
You know what saved me there? I was thinking the same thing. And what saved me there is the fact that you got to pay for shorts. My cheapness saved me some money there because,
oh God,
man,
if I paid this morning?
Yeah, it's running right now as the offers get eaten up or just getting pulled too. Brennan.
So here it is, guys. Fox is reporting that Trump won't return to Twitter regardless of this deal going through. So that's the positive side of things there.
I mean, I also find that very hard to believe, but okay.
I find that hard to believe too, but
sure.
That feels like one of those, like, he's going to say that because you got to say that. I don't know. At this point, I'll give it to 39. But it doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but truth of the matter is, if he's going to say it, you kind of have to respect that. And 40, if you kind of look up here, like 40 was that lower high. So I was very, very close to just swinging right at 37 off of this level here. And then Brendan's like, hey, wait a minute. And then you get that last little spike, and then we just rejected 39. So it did give, like, it gave me a shot. Otherwise, that could have gotten really ugly there. And now I have a 37, which isn't really that bad risk to reward. It doesn't make sense to me. I'll still say that because why would you not? Like, that's such a, what did he have, like 60 times as many followers on Twitter than he does right now on Truth? And Elon's gonna be like, you can come right back. I'd almost assume that would be the case. Either way, you have to respect the fact that that news story is there. It looks like it is starting to come back in here. But I mean, unless it gets back, like, I'm not counting a win until we get back down to like 36, even 35. Like, that's the kind of level I would certainly expect. But that's the thing about flash news there. Sometimes there was just no offer. Like, I looked at the spread, and nobody wanted to buy shares for real up at 38. Nope. There was just no offer. Like, the spread just opened up. But there were no real buyers up there, just a bunch of shorts panicking, getting up. That's why I didn't want to punch out into that kind of a move. Brendo?
All right, so he has secured, guys, $22 billion in financing. The rest will be his own money. I'm still trying to read through some of this to confirm whether or not Part of that will be in Tesla shares. If you remember last week, there were some question marks around whether some of his own Tesla shares would be the other side. But again, 21 billion secured in equity, and then the rest will come from him.
All right.
Well, he'd have to, right? Like, what other source does he have? What's Tesla doing? Nothing.
Ability to tweet from your Tesla is coming soon in the next software update.
Well, that's safe.
Who said it had to be safe?
Oh, goodness.
When you're on autopilot, why do you need to be safe?
What a ridiculous spike this was. Like, unbelievable. Like, give me a break, Neil. And by the way, if I'm muttering to myself, it's because I'm actually frustrated because I looked at that first level at 36 and was just, like, all I have to do is just take out that first third at 37. Because like that was probably a jam shot at 39, realistically, up there when there was no bid to follow it. But because I was in so bad so early, you just can't make that kind of a play because you're staring at like a huge spread. It's like I'm already in the short. And now it looks like it is coming right back into this 36. So I'm still holding on to the 38s that I got, but you can't celebrate something like that because I was definitely in a bit too early. If it comes back, maybe it'll be 35, 34, 35. I'm not talking DWAC, by the way. Like I'm not really talking anything but DWAC. And as far as Twitter goes, and we got that update, but there's been no update whatsoever in regards to when it's going to open back up. So we will just keep having to keep our ear to the ground there. That NKTX, by the way, that's still sort of hanging off that high. It broke the 18. You got the fail break. Now it's sort of just loading up. Like there's been no failure whatsoever on this one. If it were to drop, I got one bid at 17 here, and then I almost don't want to bid anything until 16 even, and then we're talking VWAP at 15. So I'm really just looking at the even dollars for NKTX. The longs are strong. Like I said, I will be angry at myself over Microsoft. I'm not really seeing an entry unless we get back and consolidate a little bit closer to 278 here. I don't love it at 279, so I'll try to be patient with that one. And as I said, I'm not going to be overly celebrating the DWAC short because that initial entry was way too early. It might be working out for me now, but let's be real. Like I probably just jumped the gun being like, that's nonsense. Let's short it. Probably just way too early. That could have been an absolute home run, get it all in front of 39, but I was in too early and sitting there like, what the heck's going on?
One thing I'm looking at is Facebook. Facebook is starting to, work some areas that I find very interesting. Though, like we should have, I guess, is actually made a much larger move to the downside if this stock was as weak as it looks on the chart, right? Like here, if we are underneath this 85 area, this 185 area, and we're actually trading, now we bounced off of it on day one, Thursday, and then we kind of actually closed on Friday, and now we're actually, underneath, starting from underneath, but trying to make an attempt into that 185. The question becomes is how strong can Facebook stay because of the way it's moving around these 182s going back to 4 o'clock of the, the 21st, of Thursday. As we rotate around these 182s, the fact that we're actually willing to make an attempt at 186 again makes me think, hey, how are we going to play against this top here? Because if you get through this top, this could actually just, not ideal, but it could just easily do a false move through the bottom, back above 190, and up we go into the 210 area. So I'd keep an eye on this one as well. Facebook, hey, listen, Facebook is a big tech name, big index name as well, so we definitely pay attention to Facebook on the regular. So if you're looking at futures as a whole, remember, you got to understand that you got to play the names that are actually, you got to keep an eye on names that have influence in these indexes, right? If you're playing the NASDAQ 100, you got to pay attention to Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, Google, and NVIDIA and Facebook, right? So those are some large tech names that matter because they push these indexes, they have influence in these indexes. And Facebook is definitely holding up well. So definitely keep an eye on this as I see that DWAC is now back towards that 35 area still. So after that snap up all the way north of 39, looks like everyone, just a quick flush to the upside, back down $4 or so, and looks like it's heading. If it can actually get below 35, we could probably open up those 33s one more time.
Out of sheer respect for the news, you know what, I am just going to take, if I can get like 50s here, like 50, 60, something like that, I'm just going to take it on DWAC because it wasn't a very well, I like the idea for the short. It wasn't a very well structured trade, unfortunately. So I'll get on the back end and I'll end up on the stock. It doesn't make it a good trade. That's the thing. You saw me get in way too early on DWAC. And just to update NKTX there, It didn't break the high of the day. I clearly misplaced my stop order there because it didn't even, it was like 18.15 or something. Instead, I know what happened. It was 18.50 instead of 15 instead of that 50 level. I must have just sort of transposed those numbers and it stopped me out. But I jumped back in, not as good of a price as the first time we had it, but you got to do that. Like I didn't mean to get stopped out without it taking the high of the day, so I did jump back in on consolidation. And then it's down to that 17 area where I said I would take some shares out, so I'll go ahead and do that in front of 17 at 17.05, and then if it gets down to VWAP, get out of the rest. But we'll ring some registers there, but that was one where if you get wicked out, you make a mistake, just eat it. Like you just get back into the trade. Like if you didn't mean to get out or didn't mean to get in, well, then you rectify it instantly. I finally got into Microsoft there on a bit of a dip. This is one where ideally for Microsoft, the kind of break that it's trying to put on here in Softy, and I'll just go to the 15-minute, right? Like this is one that I would want to be into this going close to the close or that 350 imbalances as possible because the ES is still trying to be green and the NASDAQ has been trying to break that high of the day. So if it goes, this is a name that has room to this 80 to 81 area. So it's not one where I want to give it 20 or 30 cents or so. It's not going to be that kind of a trade in Microsoft. And as we said with Viru, giving it to 13.50, it's got room to 15 even. PayPal continues to work, although it just pulled back off this 87. It can't seem to get through 88. If the market can take out the high and we get through 88, there's room for this to get to 90. There's just no reason to take this trade off. Like it's barcoding in my favor. So that's why you want to hold on to something like that. And Twitter will reopen. The way that, and this is a question Higher Grounds is asking, what's going to happen with Twitter? Look, it's a 54.20 cash offer. And it's being taken private. This won't close instantly, right? Like there will be trading. It's just possible limited upside on that trade. It could open, and we've seen deals trade at a premium where it could be a few cents away or small percentage points away from the deal price, or it could trade a lot further away from that depending on how long it's going to close. There is zero reason why the regulator should have it's going private. Like I can't see any reason why they're blocking this or would have any issue with it. So I don't see those types of hurdles like you'd have with an Activision or a merger. This is a totally different ball game. This is time value money and how long it's going to take to close. There will be some trades there, but sometimes they're just not the explosive momentum trades. So most people aren't going to be trading Twitter anymore. Like you're either holding for that 54.20 or thinking you can sell your shares now and do something better with it. It might not be a horrible place to hide your money if you think the market's going to be going further to the downside if you got a good long.
All right, I was just quickly doing the math because I see you guys talk about Twitter and what the price could be. So I pulled up, I'm probably wrong somewhere because the numbers I come up with don't make any sense. Pulled up Yahoo Finance's quick float. I did it against the float and the outstanding. Nothing prices it at 54.20. They all price it at either 57 or 62.
The deal says 54.20.
So how is it $44 billion though? That's my question.
Maybe they're just estimating that total value. That's the only thing I can think.
Okay, I'm very curious what the price is going to be. If they're saying 44 billion and then they're saying 54.20, because the math doesn't add up if you're counting it against the shares. So we'll see what this actually comes out at. But again, Twitter's going to be like Neil said. Twitter's once it gets to its deal price, there's going to be trading, but at the same time, there's a ceiling on it now, right? Whatever that, unless someone else is going to come in and say, we're going to throw in another bid, but that's not a possibility at this point because it's over. They've accepted it. So as Vince Carter pointed out, it's over.
Kind of like the Raptors. I shouldn't have said. I love the Raptors, and I shouldn't have said that. But I don't think we stand much of a chance. Philly's pretty good. Philly's pretty darn good. But like you said, I think that 54.20 seems like that's a done deal for the price. A lot of times when you hear that the dollar value, the notional value of a deal, they're making an estimate of about 44 billion. The number seems pretty firm there. So, and again, we'll get Brennan on that. When someone was asking what happened to DWAC, there was a news that Brennan brought to us that immediately Trump said he's not leaving Truth for Twitter. Like I said, I didn't necessarily believe it. It spiked all the way up to 39.50 in what was 100% a short squeeze because the buyers weren't there. It was just stop triggering. And then came right back into that 35. I had a messy trade, but I'm out of it now. It was a winning trade, but I'm not really all that happy with it and the way that it went. I am in that NKTX there. And it looks for now like this thing is put in another wick high, but there's not a lot of failure in this. In the 15-minute, look at that nice little stair step to the upside. So, getting some out at 17, definitely taking VWAP if it gets down there makes a lot of sense. I'm giving Softy's all the way back, right back to this 277 area. So as much as I love this breakout, it's about to take out, it's on a 3-minute, a 50 period is about to get tested right here. And you just had this happen on the futures. I keep wanting to turn this into a bull day, and then you have these rejections of the high by the NASDAQ, which is about to try to hold positive territory. So you're kind of right about it. The market still hasn't decided, man.
I told you, man.
It hasn't decided. I want it to.
Listen, this guy, as you could say, he got another bear leg back now because of what this market has done. We're not fully bull just yet. It has to clear that 80. That 80 is going to be a sticking point, and it's based entirely not on charts or whatnot. I mean, you could argue charts, sure, but this is, again, subjective. I'm basing it entirely on what I saw in volume on Friday at the close. That's all I'm basing it off of. I mean, you could argue for the 50 or even the 60, but if you remember back, and this is what I like to do as well, I remember previous days worth of volume, and I remember certain pockets. There's always going to be pockets where there's going to be high volume, and this area was that area. It was good 75 to 80 before we got that snap up late in the session into the 10 area, and then we snapped back down and we bounced around 65 into 70 as well, right around the 3:55 to 4 o'clock era time frame. So there's definitely a lot happening in this zone. So it's not surprising that this market decided, hey, you know what? We put in a high, intraday high of 42.75. Yeah, let's come back down now by about 25 points or so. That's the kind of market you're dealing with. It's not fully bull just yet, but there's enough to catch a bounce here. Maybe we head back to the upside, but we're going to wait this one out. I'm not touching this. Maybe a short in front of that 80, but I'm not touching this on the long side until that 80 clears. Brendan. Valeria.
Hey everyone, congratulations to Elon Musk on purchasing Twitter, but by the way, following those news, Tesla flushed to the downside from 1,000 level all the way to 980s. And meanwhile, I'm here, guys. Please make sure you like this video. I know you're busy. It's an overwhelming afternoon, but we have 3,000 people watching on only 300 likes. We can do much better. So please like this video, and back to you guys.
Yeah, and there's no bad questions. Actually, a good question here. Bob was asking, does Elon get to pocket the difference between his average price and the 54.20? Well, I mean, he just ends up paying less for the shares he doesn't already own, right? He had amassed that 9% position, and to the extent that that's in the money right now, it kind of doesn't really matter. Overall, that's just less that he has to finance. Let's just say he owned 20%. That would be better for Tesla stock because he'd have to sell less shares to raise that cash because he'd gotten into a bigger position ahead of time. But that's not the case in this standpoint. He doesn't really the benefit is again he's going to own it. It's just he's going to own it cheaper because he had already amassed a position. But there's really it's not really a windfall by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, it's a win in theory on some of those shares, but it's not like he's selling the company. He's taking it private so he can have control and do what he wants with it overall. So, of course, any growth that he gets in the future, he's got a better starting point to the extent that that 9% was at a better price than here, Brendan.
All right, so I think I solved the math problem here. So 763.5 million outstanding shares. If you times that by 54.20, it's about 41.5 billion. The company also has 5.5 billion guys in debt. So that gets you up to 46.5, which would work out on the math. He also said on Friday, if you remember, he secured 25.5 billion in financing, and now we learned today 21 will come from himself. So that's 46.5 billion. So if you include the debt, you get up to that same number.
Gotta pay those bills, right? Before you can take something, you gotta pay those bills. So he's paying up $5 billion of debt and then getting the rest. And so there you go. Brendan always coming through with the issues that we can never solve on our own. And that solves that problem for the most part. And now we just got to figure out what this market wants to do. Because as the market falls off, do I go for a short? Do I not? Do I wait? I mean, again, it's a little late in the day. That's my only issue is that we're at 3:08 Eastern time. We've got about 40 minutes before we get imbalances. Market's coming back. Market came back 25 points from that top there. And now it's starting to flirt with these 45. So here we are waiting it out. And maybe we get some more information. Maybe we take a shot. Maybe not. But for the time being, we're just going to be in a waiting pattern here. See what the market wants to do around these 50s. And as I take a quick look over, DWAC still attempting to bounce, but not getting any traction. Wants to take a look at that 35 once again.
And in the biggest
Doge.
moment of all time. Yeah, obviously Doge just made a huge move. Of course, man. Like, yeah, that should have been low-hanging fruit. Should have been really low-hanging fruit there. And again, sometimes it's a sympathy play. We were just talking about stupid sympathy plays over, sort of, oh, Tesla or Twitter's halted. What do you do with it this morning? Twitter's not going anywhere. What do you do? Short DWAC. Long Dogecoin. I'm not saying there's any specific news like, oh, yeah, all of a sudden, yeah, there's no specific news in addition here, but I think you can connect the dots there with Elon and pumping Doge. But Twitter just opened up. I think we're going to go to Ms. D, but Twitter just opened up at 52.
That's
52? Yeah.
Falling off a little bit.
You see, and this is the thing, it does not have to trade to 54. Keep this in mind, guys.
Yeah.
Like there is an upward bound on this trade. You're talking time value money. All that said, I think there might still be buyers that like the notion of hiding in this stock because it might return better than the overall market. If you think the market's coming down, then it's really not that bad to basically be able to lock in like a couple of percentage points. There should be bids. It's just, this is a scalp trade. This is not it's going to 54 today type of trade.
Yeah, that's the thing with these buyouts. Like they're going to get to their closing price when the market actually, when we actually get to the closing date. Until that point, this stock has traction. It can do whatever it wants, but like Neil said, trajectory is going to be throughout the days is going to be upward until we get to that actual closing date. Valeria.
Hey guys, what a day for Twitter and overall, and you know who is really missing on days such like this? For sure, Sean. And you know what, guys? Sean, even being sick at home, now on the chat. So, Sean, we are sending you all the love. Hope you feel very, very great very soon, and we'll be back in the office. And thank you for being with us on the chat today. Back to you guys.
All right. Yeah, so Twitter's now holding the 52 level, guys. I just grabbed the long. It just right now, like the scalp trade's pretty solid up here. I see bids jumping in every now and then, like 20, 30,000 shares. Why is this not on Twitter? That's always, I hate when that happens. Come on, TWTR. I saw bids jumping in there, like I would say every few seconds you'd see someone show up for like 20, 30,000 shares around high 51s, 5190s, around that 52 as well. So I think scalping it to the high of the day makes a little bit of sense if you can get back up to that 52. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it has the juice, but 1-to-1 that gets you back to that 5180, which was that previous high. So playing inside of that range is the way I want to go. I just don't think there's too much more upside than making that kind of a play. 5180 makes logical sense because that was previous resistance. But this is essentially right now, it's just a scalper's dream. Even taking 5 to 10 cents is kind of what's happening here, and jumping into that style trade may be the better way to go. By the way, that DWAC, if I'd held on to it, now at 34. So obviously that's going to be at the low that I did not hold on to that trade. I took it all out at 35.
All right, I've actually walked away from Veru. Veru stalling out in front of these 14s. You know, it's been a good runner all day. We're long here in the pre-market here, down at 1131. And we got some out on the run up, and we held on through this move into 14, well, close to 14. Well, yeah, no, I went through 14. Back down to 1280, secondary move up through 14 one more time, and we back down. It's trying, but it's not getting the volume that I would have hoped for. And given how strong we've run on Veru all day, at this point, do I want to stick with the intraday longs that still need to cash out? Maybe not. So I'm taking the 14s. I actually got out in front of the 14s by a few cents or so. So we have actually flattened out everything. Market is confused, to say the least.
Yep, I'll say.
This guy is definitely confused. He doesn't know what he wants to be. Is he a bull? Is he a bear? He's trying to figure it out because the market is bouncing off these 50s, but not with any sort of relevant volume. So here we are just waiting for this. Is this market going to get going towards the end of the day? I think that's a critical thing. Highly unlikely, but at the same time, we've seen some crazy things. So if we get a move north of 80, that opens the long up. If it's not too late, I will step into that long. A flip side is if we attempt to rally and fail, that could open up the short side as well going into the end of the day. So we'll see how this one plays out as we get closer to the end of the day. But I am running out of time for any sort of position trade. So anything I do is going to have to be quicker on the futures there. So I will leave it up to how we play towards 4 o'clock or so, maybe 3:55, 4 o'clock. Once I know what these imbalances look like, I might make a move towards the end. But for the time being, it does look like market wants to hold these 53s there. not break too far below, but at the same time, not enough juice to actually bounce. So, you know, it's a tricky spot to be in. With the markets being, you know, S&P down 0.3 and NASDAQ being up a quarter, that's also not the best of relationships to be looking at when you want to make a move on the market. You'd rather have both of them on the same side so they're actually, you know, in sync with each other for the most part. They don't have to be perfect, but at least directionally in sync with each other. Brendan.
Fun fact, guys, was just noticing a couple of people talking about at Jack on Twitter. If you remember, he had, I think it was around 2% left over of the company. So at Jack will end up with about $976 million in this deal for Jack Dorsey.
Not too bad, not too shabby at all. And I think it's been said in the chat, like, let's be real, guys. It is 100%. It is 100% a scalp trade at this point. Like, it's just, there is no momentum left in that style of a trade. It's not going to be there. You mentioned Veru. I'm actually not done with Veru. It has to hold that 1350, which it has been doing, and it still has a shot to take out that high. It's still bullish. I know the volume may not be there, but it's still bullish until it's not. And I think that 1350 is a line in the sand for me. Someone asked about the PayPal trade. There has, like, it can't break 88, so the market came off, but it still had support above the 86 entry price. So, you know, there's just no reason. If it takes out 86, I'm stopping out down there anyways at break even. So if we take another run, I've got to the end of the day, I'm just going to hang on to that trade. It's been a good entry point the entire morning long, and there's been nothing about it that's invalidated it. So I do want to make sure that I'm holding on to it and giving it that opportunity. That NKTX is still given a chance. It did another wick high, failing to break out through the top of the day again. So that's now 3 times it's tested that 18, and each time it's easily folded. And John, if you own 200 shares, can I just let it be in my account till whenever and get 54.20? That is exactly how it works out with a cash buyout. You can just hang on to it, eventually get exactly $54.20. That's the reason why I said, like, for some people, it could just turn into a place where you hide your money, but you don't know how long that's going to take. Right? Like, I've seen 2 quarters, you've seen a year. This is going private, so it's a little less complicated, but I wouldn't be able to tell you when I think that deal is going to close. I'd be guessing to say that it could be a couple of quarters. Maybe there's been an update that I didn't hear about the possible closing date, but is that what it is, Brendan?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, guys, in the actual announcement, it said they expected to close by the end of the year, which is not that long considering. I mean, you mentioned as well, you know, going private's a little bit different than another public company absorbing another public company because there won't be as much regulatory hurdles that will have to be cleared.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly right. So, I mean, end of the year, if you like that, if you think that beats the return on the market and you're already in it, then maybe you don't want to sell your shares. It just comes down to, do you think you can do better with that money? And you know what? I tend to think that there is an argument to be made that if it's a portion of your portfolio, yeah, it seems pretty safe at this point. If you want to hang, if you're long at 50, that's not a horrible thing to hang on to there. Just wait for your 54.20 and take it at the end of the year. Of course, you got to understand, like, your other opportunities. Snapchat, by the way, on that news, like, there's other names that made some moves. Snap actually moved to the downside on that. We already talked about DWAC, so I don't want to sort of beat that one up over and over again. It almost feels at this point, looking at Twitter, that if you're not willing to short off of 52 as well, then, you know, scalp trade is not going to be working out for you because 52 is also turning into resistance. So playing off of that level makes just as much sense as trying to buy dips and take 10, 15 cent wins.
All right, so one thing I wanted to do real quick was see what the how much influence Twitter has in an index, right? So I jumped on here. I'm using Slick Charts. I just quickly Googled whatever we had, or actually I'm using Bing. So I guess I binged whatever was available here. Twitter, number 202 on the list at 0.10%. So keep in mind, S&P now has to reduce the stake. Whenever this deal goes through, they're going to have to make adjustments from their end as well. All these indexes that have Twitter shares, they're going to need to, because, again, they need to update their portfolio. Twitter's no longer going to exist. That means they've got to shed Twitter shares, whatever they've got, to be in compliant, and then they've got to replace it with something else. So 0.1%, number 202 on the list here, 0.1077% as of what Slick's chart says. And that's going to be some sell-side pressure you're going to get from Twitter, but that's going to be done right on the last day, right? Whenever the deal closes, it's going to be done within 1 or 2 days beforehand, but that's not going to be a problem until the end, until we get to that buyout price itself. this may move it like a penny or something. But at the same time, keep in mind though, you are going to have these indexes getting rid of their shares and their stakes because again, they're going to have a company that they can't hold on to. They're trying to replicate these indexes, and these companies aren't going to exist, or this company isn't going to exist anymore. So they are going to have to get rid of that position as well. So keep in mind that'll be something to watch as we get to the buyout date. And futures, okay, futures. We're bouncing off these 50s. Looks like the market decided, hey, you know what? We're not going to sell through these 50s. We're going to bounce strong into these 80s again. So again, 75 seems to be the high, 80 is the top end resistance. If we can clear this line, here we go. This line right here, and looking pretty good at this point. It is looking pretty good for a run towards that line there. If we can get through that line, this opens up the door for the upside, especially with the way we came down on the futures. There is a wide open space, to say the least, to the upside, because in 2 days we moved 250 points. Yeah, what does that do when the market actually finally catches the nice little bottom and builds up support? Right to the upside we go. I mean, we have 43.50, 43.60 as the next checkpoint. Then you can probably work those 80s. If we can get through 80, we're going to be clear all the way up into the 44.50 area. So here we are, futures making an attempt to move up, but keep in mind we do have headwinds, or we have risk that you have to keep in mind is going to be the earnings.
No, it was just like you said, keep in mind. I'm like, can't we just go up? Maybe we will. I was just saying earnings.
Microsoft and Apple, that can change the game so quickly.
If Apple disappoints, if Microsoft doesn't do what I think everyone expects them to do, that's not going to be great for the overall market. Viru's not going to care, but it is worth noting. It's starting to come up a little bit. I still want this to take out the high of the day and run to that $15. But keep in mind, remember, we have to be flat at the end of the day. We're day trading here, so none of these positions, I'm not holding Veru saying, oh, the stock can get to 15. We're just going to hold the long for the entire week because it's a good swing trade. No, this is got to get out by the end of the day, which means if it doesn't break out from here, I'll probably take it out for a small win or even just have to stop out at flat. It's the same thing with NKTX. If it doesn't flush and doesn't take out the high, then I'm caught in the middle. I just have to get out of the trade no matter what happens there, guys. But Twitter, and I see a lot of people asking the same questions. When I know this is frustrating to talk about the same thing over and over again, but the reason why people would sell their shares now is you would think, if you think you have a better place to put your money other than getting, if you're long, like right here, let's say at 52, if you think you can do better than 54.20, potentially by the end of the year, could take longer, that's entirely possible. If you think you can do better, then you'd sell and buy whatever you think is a better investment for now. I made the argument that if you think the market's weak, not a bad place to hide your money in. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed at the end of the year, however. That is an estimated time of deal close. I've seen deals take a year, although like I said, going private is far more simple. It shouldn't be as bad. There are sellers here either way, and a lot of it is just algos having a field day with this going back and forth on Twitter. It's 100 million shares. So this is not all long-term holders saying, I want to dump my shares. You're getting sell up here because there's day traders and algos that are playing this scalp. And that's why it's not moving more than 30, 40 cents. And it might not for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and 6 months. So essentially this stock, let's just say it's end of the year, like Brendan said, at some point before the end of the year, let's just say 6 months. That takes us into September. In 6 months, this stock at the most it can move is about $2. But if the deal is going to be guaranteed, without any hurdles, then it's going to be, for the most part, you're going to get the $2. But can you make $2 a share elsewhere before then? And that's where time value of money comes into play. And for anyone who did finance, you guys will know all about time value of money. So that's what the game is right now on Twitter. Do you do you hold it? Do you park your money, as Neil said, until 54 and just leave it aside and take the $2 guaranteed? Or are you going to play the market and see if you can make $2 elsewhere in a shorter time frame, right? And as I say that, futures, here we go. New highs here, 42.76 being put in here. Nice little bounce off the 50s. A little late in the day for me to start stepping into futures positions this, with even if the 80 break, but definitely marking off that 80. I think we can mark off this, also this 50 area as well as a potential support area. So we can definitely work with this going into tomorrow, even coming back. If we were trading around this area, I think we can definitely work with some longs using this as a potential support area. So here we are kind of waiting for this market to kind of clear. It is definitely looking like this guy wants to go into a bull market. He's almost there too. He's a few points away from getting his legs and his horns out. But He's turned from a bear to a bull. It looks pretty good. Market's accelerating. What do we got to the upside? Apple has now gone positive. Tesla is actually getting weaker, but it makes sense given the weakness we're getting from Twitter, or the movement we're getting from Twitter. And then AVGO still the only relatively weak one in this market, being down 0.5%. Everything else doing really well. Google up 2.2%. So the strongest of the bunch leading the tech market to the upside is going to be Google. But again, Microsoft right behind it at 1.76% and almost at that 279 mark. So as long as Microsoft can get, close well, and that's the critical thing. We keep talking about Microsoft and its daily. As long as you can close like this, we have good times ahead, at least into earnings, and then we'll deal with earnings when they come out. But it does look pretty good the way Microsoft has bounced off the support level, at least so far, and it's leading the way. Second, it's only behind Google in this run to the upside in the NASDAQ.
Yeah, and by the way, the NKTX took out the high of the day. Then 1850 got taken out, so that's the out. We stuck to the out. I did scalp along while I started scalping along off that high. There's room to $20 on the thing, so it does make some sense to give it a shot to go. Can it hold 18 on the way back in is going to be the key. I already took some out in front of 19 on the reversal long. Always going to do that on a breakout because you're buying the high of the day. And there is a time limit on the trade as well. Like, only have 30 minutes for it to go here, so banking profit's going to make sense. If it can try to consolidate off of 18, I'll probably try to make a bit of a reload here. But that could do a rug pull. It's done it so many times. It did it at 17, it did it at 1750, it did it at 18. It could be doing the same thing when it breaks the 1850 level, so you can't be too stubborn with NKTX. It's one of those strong moves that really, I'm kicking myself because the trade was just, I guess, getting it in the morning and either reloading at 14 even and just holding it all day long. Instead, once I had covered the trade, I was trying to get into longs off breaks instead of buying dips, and sometimes buying the dip is just the way to go. I'm looking for Viru to put in that same move. Obviously, it's had some trouble. It's not Vero, which is, I hate it when you make a typo and then it ends up being a real stock because that's an easy way to make a keystroke. It's not making that same move. It's holding the high, which gives it a chance to make the same break NKTX just did. But Viru running out of time and running out of volume at these tops. Twitter's going to make a run at the high of the day, which is 52.29 right now. I'll probably take a shot at the scalp trade there because every scalp trade off of support or resistance has actually worked so far, and I was just trying to play 52. But if you just looked at where it was at that 51.50 area, bouncing off of there, failing at the high, it just makes sense to play out the established range because that's what the algos are doing anyways.
All right, futures. You want to take a look at 4280, you say? Look who's back. You're looking pretty good, too. As the future is now take a shot at that 42. High is 42.82, by the way. So future is making a move north of 80, coming back a little bit. This, it's not surprising, but it is nice to see that the futures has a nice little extension, or at least the ability to extend to the upside north of this 75 area. We should get some support on the way back down. Of course, worst case scenario would be a fallout through the bottom. So I may have jumped the gun if that was the case, but I think for the most part we should be decently okay to the upside because 2 points past the 80s is decent. But this market is, man, is it thin. It is surprising me how quickly levels are just being pulled. Because we were just at 80 and now we're at 69. And that is unusual. We're doing a decent amount of volume too. We've done 1.8 on our system in terms of contracts, 1.8 million contracts. And I believe if you go through CME, it's probably going to be closer to 2 million. So there's a decent amount of volume being done on the futures here, and yet we're still messing around here with moving fairly quickly. It does look like there's at least 50, 60 contracts per level. Okay, here we are coming off. Microsoft is coming off. Looks like Apple's turning around, so we are losing some tech names, but yet NASDAQ still positive. S&P also now positive. Even with this turnaround, S&P is still positive, up 2.5 points at 0.05%. So back to flat we go. How does this now affect the daily? Let's take a quick look at the S&P or the ES futures and see how that works on the daily. This is, for anyone who's looking at this from the technical perspective, a massive down move with a strong close makes you think if we can get that close at 415, this opens the door for that upside. And that's what we got to be looking at. It's like, okay, are they actually going to hold this well over through the night and into through the European session in the morning? And when we come back tomorrow at 8 a.m., are we going to hold well? If we can, we've got that upside. It looks pretty good. It's just a matter of holding it well above 80 and see if we can actually continue that move Big thing we got to get through, though, is going to be, I'm going to keep saying this too, it's going to be earnings, especially because it's Microsoft, because it's Apple. We got to tread carefully for the most part until we get through those earnings. And hey, once you get those earnings, once you get one and then you get the other one, as long as you can get two of them on the same side, I think you'll do just fine on the upside for the futures. If you don't get either one, it's going to be a tough sledding there.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, you definitely, I think you need both, to be honest. Like, I don't think the market's going to love mixed, one or the other, but we're definitely going to get to see that chance. DWAC here made another bounce to the upside. It ended up going all the way to 33, so, obviously getting out of the short was just a horrible idea. Broke 35, went all the way to the low of the day. It's bouncing now. 37 was a significant level. Most of the last $2 of the move was simple. It was just lack of liquidity. Like, it was just a squeeze at that point. So I tend to think that 37 might have a chance to hold up. Just be careful with the spread on this stock. I am going to try to get into the short again off this thing at 36, at 37 even. I was just on the offer of Twitter, like I said, to scalp trade it. Remember, scalp trade only at 19s, and then it made just a hard turn. Like, it gets to a price level like that, the even 52.25, 52.20, and the second it sniffs that price, it's just the offer piles up and it drops that 10 cents. It's almost like you have to be in it and then quickly scalp that 10-cent move instead of trying to catch it at the last second. But Twitter's still going gangbusters. There's a shot that it could take out the high of the day and it gives you a quick little breakout trade, but I'd scalp that too. Like, I'd be looking for 10 to 15 cents on a trade like that. And I feel like that's going to be the way Twitter goes. It's just not moving a lot. Like, it's good. It's up 50, 60 cents. I don't see it breaking like $1 or anything like this. And PayPal, I'll give it another 10 to 15 minutes. If this can't go through the high of the day, then it's just going to be one of those frustrating stocks that I might have to revisit it tomorrow. I know you do that all the time,
yeah.
Arun. And I like the level that got taken out here. It's not following through. It's not breaking that high of the day. I'll have to get out of it at some point, but as long as I can play off at 86, it's been a great level today. I might just have to come back to that one tomorrow and see if the move can continue then.
Yeah, and that's one thing that needs to be said is that don't ever forget, just because you don't have the trade today doesn't mean it's not good tomorrow. Like, we don't just need to go from news to news to news, right? Set them up. Put some alerts out. I know Neil started using alerts, I believe, last time we talked. Yeah, so he's got alerts out now that, you set them at some point in the future when they get to certain prices. You want to trade around certain prices, right? That's what matters. Trade around certain prices, not just, for the sake because it's moving today. If you don't, regardless of how it's doing, let's just say, let me pull up one of the largest leaders today. Let's just say, if we were to go up on largest gainers, percent gainers on the day, what do I got? NKTX up 136%. And then what do we got after that? Veru's up there as well. BBAI, okay. All right, I'm not going to get into all these names. They're all like fairly cheap names. But then Boyle, okay. SEMO, what is SEMO? Let's take a quick look at SEMO. SEMO up 12% on the day, running strong. Do you want to trade SEMO? It's Silicon Motion Technology. It's an ADR. Do I want to trade, just because it's up, do I want to trade it? The answer is no. I want to trade it around specific prices. It was great, if you're watching this earlier, to trade around the low 80s because you could work against the previous resistance. If you can't get that price, then you're running into all this overhead in the mid 80s, and at that point, the trade isn't worth it. So my whole thing with auto read like this, although I would not have traded this, is if you can't get a price here, you don't want the trade. That's the way I look at it, right? If I can't get the price that I want because I can't control the risk at that point, if I don't get that price, I can't control the risk anymore. So if I can't get this 81 to 80 level, then there's no point. It's okay that I missed out on, the $7 run to the upside because there's no point. And that's going to be the same for other names, right? This is just an extreme example of something that, we could have got a huge move on, but if it doesn't set up in the price and the location that you need it to be, one, it's got to look good on the daily, at least the way I look at it. It's got to look good on the daily, and the price has to make sense, right? It's all about risk control, right? As much as everybody wants to make money, you got to control your risk. The money will come if you can control the risk on your trades, right? So that's the way I look at it. And for me, if I don't get the prices that I want, then I can't control the risk. That means I don't want the trade. That's just straight up and simple. And that's why by the time I get to the afternoon, you see me in not that many positions, because a lot of the times, all my positions are priced in the morning. And then I manage them throughout the day. And then by the time we get to the end of the day, I'm mostly, for the most part, I'm out. I'm out of Veru. I've gotten out of Veru, and Veru is still messing around with this 14 level. 1408 is now the high
Still got
here.
a shot, man.
There's still, with the imbalances coming out, there's a good chance that it actually still goes to highs. But at the same time, with imbalances coming out, who's to say that isn't a sell side move, right? If I see what I see and we're stalling out around these 14s, do I need to take that chance is my thing. So for me, I just walked away from it. But Neil is holding on. Maybe he wants to see these imbalances and see if it's going to be positive.
I mean, it's not even that I think it's going to be the imbalances that take it to the upside there. It's just, it's been a strong move. It had such a great basis, Veru, and it's holding high enough there that, it's not a horrible price at that 14, but I like the 13.50 for support. If it breaks back out, I think you can get to $15. There's not a lot standing in its way. So that's why I'm not really taking anything out for 10, 15 cent scalp trades that are there. But you just mentioned key price levels and risk. And it's like the trade of the day, and we're going over AMD, not because it was the best trade. Certainly some of the other longs were better. Like Facebook long was better. PayPal probably a cleaner trade as well. But AMD, look at the support it's now put in. Like 4 times, it's actually bounced off that morning original support. Like it just fails to follow through when it gets down towards that 88.5 price level. So gonna follow that one. I just wrote that one down on my list to make sure for tomorrow, if we're playing off the same levels, 88 to 88.5 support, 89 quarter area for potential breaks and strength on AMD. We'll come back to that, but remember, they report next week as well, so you do have to wonder, are there going to be people taking some profit on that particular name? As Twitter tries to come back down here, if there's going to be a trade, and I don't anticipate 100% that there's going to be an imbalance on Twitter, but let's just say like the name I'm looking for at 350 is going to be Twitter, just to see what happens there. And if you can play it, let's just say there's a sell imbalance for whatever on Twitter, and you get a chance to like buy a dip on a sell imbalance at 51, like VWAP, 51.20, 51.30, any of these previous established support levels, I would definitely love to be able to take that shot because imbalances are there to get paired off. And because there's like, it's just the news today, like I would expect any imbalance on Twitter is getting paired today. So I'd be playing, if it's a sell imbalance, I would play a fade. If it's a buy imbalance, I'd play a buy the dip. If it's a sell imbalance, kind of go the other way around. Like if it goes to the upside on a buy imbalance, I want to sell it off a high of the day. If it goes the other direction, I want to buy it off of 51.30, and that's going to be the play for me on Twitter. It doesn't mean there will be an imbalance on the stock. I'm just thinking there's a decent chance that it could be. Otherwise, right now it looks like 51.80 could be a scalpable level. So I might try to get into it here. I just grabbed someone like 87 in front of 85. Like 80 was a pretty good level before, but once it started to check up on that last little move down, if I can scalp it from here, 87 to 52, I'll take that shot, but it's really just scalp trades until we get to 350, where there could be a bigger move to be had.
Somebody's asking, can Twitter trade above 54.20? Of course, but at the same time, it makes no sense. It makes no sense too, but there's a possibility.
All of my worst every single one of my worst buyout trades has been when a stock is irrationally traded above the price, because guess what? People can still short it. Squeezes on buyouts are because people expect it to not move. So you think it's going to be a relatively tight range. Yeah. Well, when everybody thinks that and they pile in at the periphery, everyone and their mother say go short at $54, and then it breaks the buyout price, that's triggering stops, and it's a short squeeze. So no, there's no fundamental reason why it should trade above 54.20. There's no special dividend or anything like that or a higher bidder, but it can still trade above if it squeezes people heavily shorting it. So that's a very good point. Like, it is worth mentioning. It happens all the time. Like, I've traded buyouts for years, and a lot of the worst trades are either they pull the rug and there's a reason the deal's not going to close, or it just breaks out of its expected range, and too many people have scalped it or bet that it wouldn't break out of the range. So there's too many people caught short in front of 54.20, or there could be too many people long, let's just say here, in front of 51.50, and then you have a bit of a rug pull type of event. In that particular case, because of the retail side of it, and like there is still option play that does it's not the same, but there is still option play as well. Like, you could see a squeeze if this thing ever traded up that close to that price. I'd be very, very careful shorting this one. Literally, like if I saw it up at 54.20, I'd be really careful shorting 18s and 19s. Let's just say that.
Yeah. And so there's nothing stopping it. It's not like, this is the ceiling, we can't go above. This is where the deal is if they want to irrationally go above that price for a split second because, again, like Neil said, shorts are getting moved out of the way. then that's a possibility. If everyone's got to stop in, think about it, right? Everyone's got to stop in, and you know where the stops are roughly going to be. Why not take a shot at it? Why not get them all out? Take their money while you're waiting for your position to get, work back to the buyout price. So since Neil was talking about imbalances, let's talk about imbalances, right? Let's just clarify something here. When we refer to imbalances, this is our imbalance tool from Daytrade the World, built into our People Rate software, only available on Daytrade the World. And for Daytrade the World offices or affiliated offices. So essentially what you get is the ability to see what the final, the volume is going to be executed on the close. Because at 3:50, New York sends out their data saying, hey, you know what? Everyone who wants to participate in the official closing price that has sent orders with an on-close order tag, they get to be executed at whatever the official price that we come up with is, right? It's going to be as close to the final trading price as possible, but in the event there's a large imbalance, meaning there's a lot of interest in a specific stock because whatever reason, indexing event, whatever the reason could be, it's going to show up here. So typically what you see in a non-indexing event type of day is that numbers come in at 3:55 when the floor sends their update, numbers get updated, and then they kind of disappear by the end of the day for the most part. On indexing event days, numbers come in, they come in very big, so 1 million shares on a stock that maybe trades 500,000 on a regular day now has to trade 1 million shares and be executed at the end of the day. That puts pressure on actually getting this volume done, so a lot of people see that, and then algos, remember, they've got to figure out how to execute this, or the market maker has to execute this closing situation without maximizing volatility and deviating too far away from where it last traded. So they'll try to figure out how to balance this out. So what you'll see is numbers coming in at 350, 355, you'll get that floor interest, and then after that, there'll be a drift in the stock towards the direction of the imbalance. So you'll see the symbol on one side, the direction on the other, size of the imbalance, and how much has already been matched, which is the paired value, the PV right here. So if you add the size and the PV together, that's your total print size on the official closing price. So that's what you're going to get. This morning, this is from this morning, so NAT this morning would have printed 1.1 million shares on the opening print. So that's what you got. And at 3:50, we'll go through this one more. Well, I'll show you guys what it looks like when we actually get that data. Because remember, all this data, for the most part, is from this morning. So all these are from 9:30. And we're just going to wait for the 3:50 update, and then we can go from there.
So just quickly, ATR making a bit of a move here. I was going to talk about, I just took some shares. I can ring the register a little bit because time's running out. I had to ring the register on some of the Veru shares in front of the high of the day. It's still trying to make that break, but ATR just did break towards, really it's just Friday's high, this 485 level. $5 does stand in the way as well. I didn't really see any news or anything like that on ATR. We'll keep our ears to the ground. There's, like I said in Twitter, like if you're not scalping 5, 10, 15 cents, it's not going to make any sense to be making that trade. So you will see me in it. And I did take 5 cents, and I will take 10, then I will take 15 when I get that chance. But ATR, late runner here. I think it's just a technical break. That's what it looks like. But hopefully if there's any news on ATR, we will see it. It looks like a technical break to me. And because, as Arun mentioned, 350 is coming really close, I'm now going to get a little bit more. I'm going to have to sell PayPal, obviously. I'll give it some more time here, but it looks like 87.50 to 88 is probably as good as it's going to get off that 86 long. There's no fighting it. The market just touched 13.5 on the NASDAQ, that 1% mark. The ES is also breaking the top, and we're not getting a breakout here in PayPal. Like, I can't ignore the fact that it's not really going or following through, so I'm going to have to take this one out. It was a good level. It's worked from that 86, but it's not following through with the rest of the market. And there's only about 15 minutes left in the day.
Yeah, as the market now comes back into these 80s and still moving strong to the downside, there goes the 80 level on the market. So looks like we're doing a pullback here late into the session. Somebody in the chat was saying it's a 200 million sell side imbalance. That's somewhat small for the most part. For a day like this, that's been quite wide ranging. It is on the smaller side. But again, we've had those numbers and they've been off by quite a bit before. So here we are kind of just waiting. We don't know. We think it's going to be one direction, but again, those numbers change very, very quickly, and you don't always get the update that you would hope for. So we're just going to wait for that one to kind of come through. We've got about 7 minutes left before these numbers come back in, and it looks like a lot of these names that we were in, remember we were in Veru, we were in Microsoft. I believe Microsoft actually came off a little bit too, right? Is that the one?
It's at the high. It's back at the high. Now it's up 2%.
Oh yeah, no, Microsoft isn't the one. Which one came off? Okay, something else came off, but no, it wasn't Microsoft. Anyways, I probably had the wrong chart up, but it does look like after the market bounced down, snapped back to the upside. So the futures themselves are getting a little dicey at this point. Okay, there we go. The futures themselves are getting a little dicey as it snapped down south of 80 and then decided it wants to go back up to the upside, now putting in highs here at 88 even. Well, I guess not highs. We're almost at the highs. 89 and change is going to be the high here. Look at that snap down. If you want a quick 12-point move to the downside and then a snap back up, and there goes 90 to the upside as the market takes off. And hey, can we do 4,300 today? That'll be nice, but I'm very curious on whether we can actually do 4,300. That might be reaching a little bit, but the market is accelerating to the upside. We got the clearance. As soon as we took out 80, we had the green light to the upside. Bull decides to get into full bull mode right here. He's got all his limbs. He's ready to go, and this market might be ready to go as well. Maybe these imbalances are going to be a nice little move to the upside, even with a 200 million sell.
See, it can happen. There we go. Finally, the full bull did it. We had this debate all morning long, but I was sort of like, it was so bad last week that if the lows held on a Monday when everyone's thinking doom and gloom, a lot of times those are the best longs. And when none of the breakout prices managed to, like, nothing that looked good for a long really actually challenged those lows. I'm looking at whether it was Facebook or, well, Facebook actually did, but whether it was Microsoft was an example, AMD and NVIDIA were both examples there, Square and PayPal were both examples, and there were a lot of other names that we didn't really look at that they just couldn't take out that low or even challenge it. So we'd get that update. It looks like ATR, no news, it is consolidating off of 490. Under normal circumstances, this was an hour ago, I'd be short the stock on this consolidation with a stop at the high of the day, but not with 4 minutes to the imbalances. Going to hang on to Veru because it's still got time to take out the top, and I can give it till the close. And then Twitter, it doesn't even want to give you more than 5 or 10 cents at this point on a scalp trade, so it's kind of getting pretty lazy up here, Brendo.
I won't bore you reading through this myself, but if anyone's interested, there is a statement from Elon that was just posted. Looks like that, very positive on the whole thing, obviously talking about new features, talking about making the algorithm open source. So that's on Twitter, guys, if you want to have a read through Elon's statement.
All right.
Yeah, and like none of that's gonna matter to the stock. Like I get it. Like there's people like, oh yeah, like Elon can tweet stuff and it can make it go up. And I just reloaded along there as well off of this. You know, every time it kind of dips down 10 cents, just try to scalp it on a bit of a bounce. But fundamentally, none of that matters. Earnings don't really matter. What he said doesn't matter. The company's going private for $54.20. It's just a matter of what you think of that return. You're making a judgment call, buying and holding, what you think of that return to whenever the deal does close. And yes, it can move the stock. Like there's like I said, it just went down to 51.77. Now you're back in the mid 80s. That's the game that you're playing. I should probably be showing a 1 minute chart when I trade this, but I've been looking at a 3 anyways. But there's scalp trades in there if you want to take them. That's just all there is going to be here for you guys. Unfortunately, there's really nothing else. You can still have movement on Tesla. It's been weak today because, as mentioned by Brennan, and I think a lot of times in the chat as well, some of this is not going to be funded, is going to be personally funded by Elon Musk, which means possibly selling some Tesla shares. And then the other side of that coin would be, you can make the argument that it'll be distracted by turning around Twitter, which I'll come out and say, I love Elon Musk. I would personally prefer that he focus on Starlink and SpaceX and Tesla, but that's just my personal opinion. The guy's a machine. He can probably do it all. I just don't think most people can. You got so much bandwidth out there, and I mean internal like mental bandwidth. I think it's better spent focusing on what he's already in. But hey, if he thinks he can do it, I think he'll be great for the company. But if he turns Twitter around and makes it a beast, it's going private. You don't benefit from that if you buy your shares now. You get 54.20.
Right, private company means you don't get to play it as a stock anymore.
Yeah.
So it will be off the table to be played with. But hey, let's see what these imbalances bring in terms of final data. Because hey, there could also be a decent imbalance on Twitter. This is the name we're waiting for today, right?
No,
sure, we can play for. Actually, DWAC could be also another name that has a decent imbalance as well. So stuff that's in the news, the stuff that's moving around right now is going to be the ones that are going to be, hot to play with right now. I'm just going to keep this up here. Whenever we get this imbalance data, I'll show you guys. But the market is putting in new highs right now. Well, every time I say it's putting in new highs, it backs off by a point. It barely ticks, but it actually moves like 2 points to the downside. So we are working 91 to the upside, and 93.75 is the high. So we'll see what this market does as it backs off a little bit more. Let's actually get a smaller chart. Let's get a 1 minute chart just to see what this market wants to do as it falls from this 90 area with about a minute left before these imbalances come out. And running strong, too, to the downside. Okay, downside we go. I guess that sell-side imbalance is going to be in play here as we move to the downside. It does look like Twitter's coming off a little bit south of that 51, what is that, 5180? Yeah, 5180-ish to the downside. So there goes the market to the downside.
Yeah, I also stopped scalping Twitter. Like it was a little closer to 350 than I realized there. So I don't want any chance that there is a big spike on the imbalance, because I think there's going to be a fadeable trade there. That's what I said. That's what I'm going to be watching. I only have the Veru trade, which doesn't look like it's going to break that high of the day. We'll see. It's still in the money a little bit, but not a heck of a lot. It still has a shot. But Twitter, if it does make a move here, just zooming back in the 5 minute chart, there was one last scalp that we put on. I either want to be playing it off of support on a sell imbalance if it does, like sort of like a buy of the dip, or sell the rip if it gets to the high of the day. And that's anticipating that there could be an imbalance. There might not be. There could be absolutely nothing on Twitter. We'll find out in 10 seconds.
Yeah, in 10 seconds, we'll come to me right here. We'll show it on the screen right here. What do we got? What do we got in terms of imbalances? How do they look? They are mixed, it looks like. Yeah, mixed. They're going to be mixed here. And the biggest one is going to be open. Sell-side imbalance of 1.9 million shares. And then we got Apple up there, buy-side 1.681, so call it 1.7. AT&T's there. AT&T's too small to matter. Nielsen's always been there, and ZTO, I don't even know what ZTO is actually. Zynga's there, 862 to buy.
That's always...
Is Zynga always there?
Zynga and Nielsen and some of those, yeah, that's all. ATVI, like a lot of these buyouts, like open buyouts, because they're like buyouts are trading with bigger spreads ever since the administration came in. The FTC is cracking down on literally every single merger. So like they're taking longer to close, which means there's a lot more options activity on them. There's a lot more hedging and arb trades being made on some of these buyouts, which means that there's bigger open positions allowing for bigger closing auctions. So that's why every single day you see Nielsen, you see ATVI, you'll probably see, that's why I was kind of thinking Twitter could be there, and maybe you'll see it in the future as well. But as far as open goes, that was a 1.9 million sell. It had it moved like 3 cents to the downside. That was like the first thing I pulled up. Is there a trade there? Like if this had pulled back to 725, then essentially it's like buy in front of where support is on a sell imbalance, anticipating they're just going to pair it off by the close, and then you scalp 10, 15 cents. Like that's what I would have looked to hope for when I saw the sell imbalance. Unfortunately, nothing happened. Yeah.
So there's as the market bounces back, it is all over the place. The way the future, look at this. This is what the futures has done. Going into and coming out of the imbalances, up into 92, drop, about 13 points, and then snap back up, now working 90s again and looking like it wants to take a look at those highs again, 93.75 the high on this market. Remember, 355 is going to be the next checkpoint here as these imbalances get an update from the floor regarding their interest. Is open going to stick with the 1.8 sell side move? Nielsen, well, we know Nielsen. Apple is 1.5 million shares to buy, so that's going to be an interesting one to watch as well. Remember, Apple's the largest NASDAQ player, so if Apple decides to stay, you're probably going to see some acceleration on NASDAQ to the upside. The NASDAQ futures I'm talking about to the upside. So in about 3 minutes or so, we should get an update from the floor. We will get an update from the floor regarding these imbalances. I'm going through the list here. What do we got? Anything else that matters? Maybe you were trading PDD, or you were looking at PDD earlier. That's got 681 to buy.
That was Pindo. By the way, we do like lunchtime trades, and I should have gone over this one because I was looking for something to short, thinking the market could turn around. Well, in case it turned around to sort of balance the longs that we had from the morning. And Pindo Duo was super, super strong all morning long. And it got to like this 36 level. I'm like, okay, we'll short the consolidation. And then it tried to break out. Ended up being a good short. I just wasn't patient enough with it. So when I see that silly thing, I'm calling it silly, on the imbalance locator, it's not a surprise. It just paired off now, so it looks like, I just thought, oh, no, it's still a 600,000, so it's still got some strength to it. But a lot of the U.S.-listed Chinese names showed some strength today, bouncing more than the overall market. So the risk names did do better. I mean, things like Affirm also did better than the overall market. I know we kind of discount them, but a lot of times when the risk comes back on, you'll see outsized moves in those. ATER, I mentioned, I'm not really ignoring the stock. I know it's the thing that's going. and I would have probably, like I said, I would have probably traded it if it wasn't this close to the close. Just got to $5 and looks like it's putting a turnaround in. This has a shot. It's like if it breaks 5, there's still some overhead resistance if it gets like 10, 15 cents, but it has a shot to be one of those that runs at 4 o'clock. Nothing I'm going to be doing about it, as you guys know. I'm just holding on for Veru. We'll get at 355. If it's testing the high, I'll give it a chance. If it's not even breaking far away from this 14 even, I'll just take it out for 25, 30 cents or whatever it is. But it's close enough to the top, and I got a good price that I'm not buying it at the high of the day like you would be with ATR. With a long, I'm allowing it to try to play to the high of the day.
Yeah. And quickly taking a look at my Veru is, you just went over it. I'm just thinking, hey, what's our chance at this late in the day? I don't know. I'm pretty happy with my exit on Veru, to be fair, around these 14s, because we are gravitating to these 14s. Walk away from that one. What was the other one I actually had? Netflix. Let's see how Netflix is going to close the day here, because we tried the long earlier. It did not work out. And they got close. They broke 204? No, they broke 205 and worked into 204.50, and now we're making a move back above 210. Remember, resistance is going to be sitting here all the way up to 215 because the way it's been trading the last few days, there's been a pockets of resistance. So here we are kind of moving up strong on Netflix after a rough day. Still down 2.5%, but at least moving to the upside. Brendan.
Under 5 minutes to go here. Let's get you caught up on what to know for earnings, guys, coming up tonight and tomorrow morning.
Yeah, well, we had Coke today, and of course we're getting Pepsi as well. UPS, GE hasn't really been too crazy a day trading stock, but certainly a decent barometer. I'll be watching some DR Horton. Like we said, it's not the greatest environment for the home builders, but that is going to be a mover tomorrow. We talked about this before. Like earnings have been a great catalyst this year, so you never want to ignore anything that has earnings as a catalyst. But the trades that set up today, when we made this little bit of a temp bottom, some of these levels will still be in play. Like that's why I'll come right back to AMD. I'll be looking at AMD. I'll be looking at DWAC and Twitter again 100%. I'll be looking at ATR and Veru 100%, and I'll be going back over to PayPal and PayPal, Facebook as well. Nvidia probably off 190 if we get a chance to play off that level. Look at the strength happening in AMD. So I opened it up with the trade of the day talking about not respecting the support that I was using in the morning. And look what it gave you. 4 times, especially in the afternoon, now bouncing off those same levels. So when you had that sort of higher time frame look, sometimes on the way back in, you just have to respect your level over sort of overthinking things with regards to what the overall market is doing at that time. And yes, AMD was relatively weak. It ended up not mattering, and that support is fantastic at 88.5, down to about 88 on AMD. And a similar thing with NVIDIA, making a strong move going into the close. 3 minutes to go, and it's breaking out the high. So NVIDIA, with the downgrade, like today, it was an AMD upgrade, NVIDIA downgrade. It's NVIDIA that's stronger than AMD after all, after holding that 190. So both these names got to be on your radar tomorrow. And all the chips, like you said, Marvell, probably just as good an opportunity, if not better than some of these, and should be looking at Micron. We get Intel this week, so I'd stay away from them until we get the earnings. You get next week AMD.
Yeah, one chart I actually want to take a look at actually tomorrow is going to be Raytheon. Raytheon's had a lot of movement in the last 3 days, right? We fell from 106 all the way down through 90, 98, 97 today, and we're bouncing off this little bottom here. Okay, that'll be interesting to watch as we move to the upside. So one to watch. Let's take a quick look at the imbalances. Yeah, you got Nielsen, AT&T, and ZTO. So again, 2 buyouts, I believe, Neil? Nielsen and ZTO, is that right?
ZTO, I'm not sure.
Okay, and then AT&T, and the big one after that's going to be GM to the sell side, 944K. So for the most part, this is what an imbalance on a non-indexing day looks like, which is nothing. There's nothing. The Apple's gone. Remember, Apple was there, 1.5, gone. So that's typically how these kind of happen. Now come towards the end of the month or come towards rebalancing days, that's a completely different story because those ones actually will matter. They come out bigger and they will stick around because they actually need to get done. But these are just, they will get paired, they come out, and for the most part, they will get paired. You may be surprised by one here and there, but you are not going to get a consistent movement in all of these names. GM is still there, sell side. But as this market actually is 2 points from its highs, GM is 900K going to be enough to sell GM off a little bit, even to get a print to the downside. So I'm going to say no to that, and we are just going to wait for this one. Somebody asking about SPY imbalances. Let me put an Amex if I've got time. We'll see. I don't really pay attention to SPY imbalances, but Amex, It's not here. SPY imbalances tend to be tiny for the most part because they just fluctuate back and forth. I don't really pay attention. Tomorrow, actually, I'll put up SPY and I'll isolate SPY actually tomorrow and see if we can actually get some data on that.
Well, yeah, the only point I'd add to that is it's not that you never see it, it's very rare, but sometimes I've seen, like I used to look at the Amex, and sometimes you would see some of those ETFs have imbalances. It's just very rare. That's all. And of course, Shigon, ATR, breaks at 5 even. I guess the breakout trade was safe, and it's not going to wait till 4 o'clock to make that run. It felt like it was just going to consolidate and put that move on at 4. Instead, it's going to go a little bit early. We got shifted to the the bull from the bear, finally, fully. The ES is closing up 0.5%. Didn't seem like that would be the case. The NASDAQ, very, very strong day after the bloodbath last week. So the longs this morning, all good to go. The question is, can we hold these gains through earnings the next couple of weeks?
That's going to matter.
We get the sort of like the juggernaut of earnings are up and coming. Can the market hold up? But regardless, we get to end on a high note for multiple reasons. Market's up. Tony and Miss V will both be together on the bell, and they both got the green on, so that certainly worked out. Good way to come back.
And we've got, 15 seconds left as we head into the end of the day. Let's see what kind of dance they're going to do. Are you guys going to do a dance as we get to the close? Countdown's on, man. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6. Oh, Tony's actually committed to this. Valeria, you're slacking a little bit.
He's called
ring it. They're fighting for the last ring.
I don't know about Arun calling out Valeria for the moves.
I didn't say anything about moves. I just said she's slacking because Tony was actually really committed to his dance.
Tony's always committed to his dance, though. He's always committed. That's the truth. Always committed is Brendan, who's committed to making sure we know what's up. Today the market was up, but was everything else strong? That's the real question.
Pretty impressive bounce back anyways. I mean, nearly 100-point swing for the S&P bottom to top. Here we go, 0.5% there at the end of the day. 0.65 for the Dow. The NASDAQ led the way. That's important for tomorrow. Let's see what happens for tech stocks, see if we get any follow through. Crude, 2.9. Remember, that was down 6% at one point just after the open. So nice bounce back there as well, guys.
And it's the old bane of your existence when you own TSX stocks. If you own stuff in Toronto, it's like the market is heavily weighted to energy and materials. So when there's weakness there, the TSX isn't going to be that great. But that's okay. The markets that we care about move to the upside. You obviously have all noticed I was able to come back. My voice is dead. But Arun is still in for Sean, who he was in the chat, which I think is a really good sign, but was under the weather. Hopefully he'll be back. Don't know when, but you saw him in the chat. I'm sure he'll be there as long as he's feeling good again for the rest of the week. Arun putting in yeoman's work for 3 weeks in a row. So shout out to Arun, but the entire team, because it's like a full house in front of me. So I'm going to go right down the line. It's Lucas, it's Rob, it's Mark, it's Fahad, it's Maggie in the building as well. Shout out to Liz. Of course, shout out to Trader Pratt and Ms. V. Trader Pratt's got the jacket and the hat like he's ready to go. I don't know if we want to put him on camera. Trader Pratt, what's up? He's ready to go. He's ready to get out of here. But thank you all. I missed out on how Ms. V's trades went today. I did miss the opportunity. She's now live, and I got to follow up to see how you did today, Ms. V. Was it a green day? No? Okay. Well, then I shouldn't have asked. I apologize. But
it's a rough day all around, though.
It was one of those types. It was a tricky day. Didn't make the most of some of the long trades that were out there. But we will be back tomorrow. We're ending on a high of the day. ATR is still ripping. Catch us tomorrow. We are Trader TV Live. Catch us at 8:30 tomorrow morning. See you guys.